All right, welcome everyone. This is Monday, March 30th. Well, we're at the end of the month. It's 1 p.m. This is the work session of the Weaver County Board of Commissioners for this date. I'm Commissioner Gage Fora with me. To my left is Commissioner Sharon Bowles. To my right, Commissioner James Harvey. We're going to start this meeting this morning with a discussion or approval of the minutes for the work session held on March 23, 2026.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Let's go to our next agenda item, which is discussion regarding the interlocal agreement with Plain City for 2200 North. Sean Wilkinson's here with us, Bill Ross, Gary Myers, Cortland Erickson, and our own Joe Hadley.
Start the
Sean?
video on this, please. Turn the video on.
Oh, there we go. Okay, now we're cooking. There we go.
All right. So commissioners, you are aware of this agreement. This is 2200 North in Plain City. Plain City has been working on some changes to this agreement. They have sent those back to us. We have reviewed those internally. And now we have some recommendations we would like to send back to them. So we wanted to get your input before we officially send it back. So if you'll recall, previously we had agreed to do some improvements on 2200 North. That included some piping, road base, and eventually putting asphalt down. As part of that, Plain City was going to carry through with the eminent domain process for one piece of property. And once that was acquired, then we would reimburse them for those costs. The biggest change to this agreement is that we will now be doing the eminent domain. And the annexation that we've been talking about won't take place until after that has happened. So I'll go through these changes, and if you have questions, please let me know.
Okay, shoot.
All right. So starting on page 2 of the agreement, Plain City had also, in the recitals of the agreement, Plain City had asked us to do some expanded paving to a width of 33 feet on 2200 North, but we don't think that the right of way has been acquired on the north side in order for us to do that. So if they had acquired it, we would be happy to do that, and then they would just pay us back. But because they have not acquired that right of way, we're going to take that out of the agreement and just let them know if they do end up acquiring that right of way before we pave, we'd be happy to work out an agreement just on the paving portion. So it's 22 feet, it's not 33 feet. So we're going to take that out. All right. So this agreement covers all of 2200 North that is currently unincorporated. And what we're saying is that before July 1st, 2026, this year, we will pipe the drainage on the south side of the road, install road base in a manner that complies with the city's standard road specifications, and we will pave the road with 4-inch thick asphalt in a manner that complies with the city's standard road specifications. And the piping is 264 linear feet of 18-inch pipe, which has already been done. Is that correct?
Correct.
Piping is done.
And 2 4x4 boxes.
It's all done.
It's all done.
Yeah.
There was a little section, but now it's all done.
There were 2 little sections there,
Okay.
piped, backfilled, compacted, and ready for asphalt.
Yeah.
Sorry, since I've interrupted already, before we were just going to, since this was a disparity in this conversation, we were just going to give today's money, which is, boy, if we'd have done this a month ago, we'd have been in better shape. But today's money on asphalt, to pay it and then turn that over to the city. Is that still the way this is gonna look?
Yeah, we will pave it by July 1st of this year. And then we're done with the improvement part of this.
Okay,
So there's no reimbursement back and forth between the city and the county because we are just doing the portions that are unincorporated. Now, there is one portion that is currently part of Plain City that has already been annexed in. It's 264 feet or something like that. 210. When we did the math, it would cost about $6,000 to pave it.
On the Plain City portion.
Yep.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for us to pave, stop, pave. So we think we'll just pave through And we'll work something out with Plain City, whether it's part of this agreement or something separate, just for that portion, so that we're not skipping sections just because it's part of Plain City.
So yeah, we're not gonna leave a piece of dirt there.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
got it.
Okay. So commissioners, as I said, we still need to acquire one piece of property. We will do all the paving that we can, but make sure that we do not interfere with that person's property rights. And then once the property has been acquired, we will finish whatever needs to happen. If we can get the full width without that property, great. If we can't, then the agreement allows us, our changes allow us to take care of that at a future time. That does not need to be done by July 1st. So if we do all of that and then we acquire that property, Plain City will, within 60 days after we complete all of the road improvements, they will adopt an ordinance approving the annexation of the area that we have already approved. And you did that by resolution earlier this year. So, or I think that was last year, actually. Yeah, last year. But that is the agreement. So we get everything we want accomplished. We still do need to pay the property owners that we have negotiated with. It will be an increased amount. And Gary can speak to that, but we've got everything in place now, and we believe that Plain City will be okay with these changes that we've made.
Thanks, Bronco.
Yeah. Thank you.
So they've been good to work with. Cortland, do you have any other comments?
No, is there any questions?
Okay. Any questions, commissioners?
So, yeah, a couple questions. So originally, when we talked about this last time.
Yep.
Plain City was gonna take care of that property that we don't have
Correct.
IV condemnation.
Yes.
And now they've come back and said,
They said it makes more sense where we have already hired an attorney to do this.
Okay.
And where we're familiar with it, and we've already sent out the initial letters. It makes more sense for us just to continue rather than for them to take over. And the annexation, as far as the attorneys have told us, it can be pushed out. They can still adopt that resolution at a future date. There's not really an expiration on it. So as long as we pursue this quickly and get this taken care of, they will then do the annexation once we have completed.
But it would require us then to do an eminent domain.
Correct,
act.
it would, yes.
yeah, okay, so one simple question. Why is this a good deal for Weber County? They get the road paved,
Mhm.
we put in the piping. They annex it at some point in the future.
But they have to do it within 60 days of us completing it.
Okay, completing the
Completing,
eminent domain.
yes, completing all of the acquisition and the improvements.
And at this point in time, I think it's fair to say we don't know what the cost would be on that, acquiring that additional property by eminent domain.
Correct.
So it is kind of a open checkbook, in my opinion, from that standpoint. Am I right, or?
To a point, the property is very small.
Yeah,
It's not going to be a substantial amount of money, but yes, it's more money than we would have paid had we had a willing buyer. Sure.
so the advantage to the county
Or willing seller.
would be eventually to have them annex it in, takes that infrastructure off our books, puts it on their books.
Correct.
It's already in.
Yeah, but we're paying the cost now.
Well, we did all this because we had a former mayor
Yeah.
there that asserted all
Right.
these
No.
promises.
No, I get that. I get that. That didn't happen, so we're,
And then the only thing that's good is that I think we've got a mayor out there we can trust now.
good point. Commissioner Bolos, questions, comments? Commissioner Harder,
I've already aired my thoughts. You can tell by the tone of my voice how pleased I am.
yeah, I could tell you're just jumping for joy.
It's the right thing to do by the people, but I don't like how we got to this point. But it's kind of like saying you gotta take this horse pill and it makes an Alka-Seltzer look like a enteric coated aspirin.
Wonderful.
Those of you, there's very few.
About that Joe, about that
understand
horse
what
pill, he knows
is.
more about it than I do. Okay, additional comments? Gary?
No, I think Sean pretty much covered it.
Gary, we have all the agreements in place.
They're all in
for All of
place.
the other properties.
Yes, we have not closed on them yet. Because the three of them went to the ombudsman's office. So we were waiting to see what the ombudsman's office comes back with an updated value, at which point we'll update all the rest of the agreements. Set up the meetings to initiate closing with them, and then we're done. Except for the one we know will be a longer eminent domain process.
Okay, well, I understand where Commissioner Harvey's coming from because I feel exactly the same way that if this would have been done a couple, 3 years ago, when maybe it's been 4.
Yep.
It would have been a lot less costly to the county.
Yes.
So anyway, I'm gonna bite my tongue and say, let's do it. Unless there's objection.
I don't have any.
Can I ask?
I don't have any.
All right, Sean, I think that's your answer.
Hold on, I had one question.
Do you want us to move forward with the attorney with eminent domain?
Have a choice.
Well, yeah, I don't,
There will need to be a formal resolution that comes before you, but should we get him going on that so that can come before you?
yeah, I mean, we've already got the ones that now we have to increase.
Yeah.
That we've already got agreements with.
Yeah.
So my opinion, yeah, the quicker we get this done, the less costly it is. So, yeah, unless there's objection, I think we do that.
Okay, then commissioners, we will make the changes that we need to in this agreement. We'll get it back to Plain City and let them approve it, get it back to us, we'll approve it, and off we go.
Okay. Look at that smile on Commissioner Harvey's face. You got like it. Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
I think. All right, next agenda item here. Thanks for that input.
You bet.
So Joe, where are we sitting with our roads with the asphalt? Do we know where, off the subject, where our asphalt prices are headed?
$59.50. They're 50 cents lower than last year.
Really?
Really?
Yep.
Because of
But
our,
usually when oil fluctuates like it has been doing, they'll put in place, I can't remember the word but they can go in and,
Buy it at that price. Hold the
no, they
price.
could change their price, I
Oh.
guess is what I can't remember the right terminology. But right now it's $59.50 a ton.
When they gonna open?
Today,
Send you that.
They open today?
Granite opened today.
really?
Yep, Granite opened today. Parsons, I think, is the first week of April.
That's next week.
So next week. Yep,
Cool.
yep. So they're a couple weeks ahead of schedule. They're usually the middle of April. So
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna get a lot of stuff done here before June 1, huh?
I hope so.
Yeah,
Yep, we're a month ahead of schedule. So
I know you will.
you need me to stick around for anything else?
Usually that
Thanks.
Sticky note there though.
Oh, yeah. I know where to
I
sit.
mean, you can keep it if you want, but you're also welcome to leave it.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great
Okay,
I
job.
guess.
with
Joe.
your permission, we're gonna move to our next agenda item, which is discussion regarding the county fire warden agreement. Brett Clark's with us, Dusty Richards, and Stephanie Russell's listed here as well. There's Stephanie down there.
Stand her up a little bit, if that's okay.
Brett, go ahead.
All the way back.
Okay, just leave the sticky note.
Yeah.
there.
I'm leaving it. I'm not gonna say it.
Not me.
Yeah.
Well, you're listed here, but
I got
So-
invitations.
It was supposed to be Stephanie Eber, but this is from me, yeah, because it's a budget thing.
Do you want stuff?
Oh, here's all the
Yeah.
budget
Can I
questions
start
for
here,
you.
Commissioner?
you can.
So I've been meeting with
This
Britt.
is your deal.
Well, yeah, I've been meeting with Britt and Dusty for a while. This is, has to do with, wildland forestry and our fire and our agreements. We've been enjoying a great relationship with these folks for a number of years. And I'd like to enjoy it at the same rate that we've been enjoying for the last 8, 9, 10 years. But
Okay.
they said they'd like to get a little increase to their budget. But, you know, there's a time, we've always learned that when you do these things, you do them incrementally. Well, they didn't do it.
Hmm.
They're at error on here. I'm just telling you right up, I might as well say how the cow chews the cabbage here. But this is what it is. And so they're here. They're not really to grovel, but they're just telling us how it goes. And so There you go. I've paved the way for you. Good luck keeping it
Okay.
within the guardrail.
I can add more substance to that.
So he's
So-
giving us the bad news. Now tell us the good news.
Well, he went right to the core of it.
Yeah.
So
All right.
our agreement that we're working on right now was negotiated in 2016 and put into play in 2017. So
Wow.
the district, usually we try to review these at a maximum of every 5 years. That didn't happen. When I became chief in 2024, I started reviewing all these and I caught it in 2025. And so that's kind of where we're at now. So it's really been, I mean, we're coming up on 10 years. And these prices in here kind of reflect back to 2016. And in that time, as everyone knows, wages have gone up, materials have gone up, training's gone up, everything's gone up. And so that's kind of what it reflects.
Okay.
What he's saying is that it's only been on Chief Clark for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a year and a
So
half.
you're not
That's-
taking the full blend since two thousand
No,
seventeen.
and that.
And I was the
exactly
off-peak
right.
before then too. So I'm kind of at fault there too.
This is
And
kind of that insurance. And here's the thing though. This is kind of that insurance that if there's a fire, they cover it. And it's probably a pretty good year for us to really kind of look at this. I don't know I don't know where you live, but in case you've been watching the snow or the lack
No,
of.
I've got a lot of tall dead stuff about this. Yeah, I understand.
And part of this, I mean, there's a lot of mitigation work that goes on as part of this. And there's also grants that we've got and we're working on right now in different areas of the county to mitigate fire danger. And so, I mean, it's a huge benefit to the county. It's a huge benefit to Weaver Fire District, and it's a huge benefit to the state to have
I've
it in
got,
place.
I've got one thing I want to talk about. Sorry.
Go ahead.
This thing, sorry, but you're gonna get the other barrel now, Dusty.
that's all right.
The open burn for the folks out west or wherever, the dates for those are arbitrary. When you have a year like this year, it'd be good if we could kind of change those around and, cause I know that for us, some of the counties have a different than we do. But we've got to have a little help on that because we need to be burning now.
I agree. So the open burn window, we have no control over. That's between you guys and DAQ, and that was decided at a county.
DEQ.
DAQ, Division of Air Quality. And I believe that was decided on a county type basis. I know Box Elders
So you
is
think
totally different
The
than,
dates
Yeah.
are set by DAQ.
They are.
They are. We
yep,
know they are.
Okay.
yep.
We might need to do an exemption like we did with the
Yeah.
weed board, or
Yeah.
the weed thing.
Yeah,
We
that's-
do need to do that.
That's what was my first thought when we did that exemption for the weed board is why don't we do this for the open burn?
Okay.
Agreed. I'm for it.
And
Okay,
that's
so
where I
that-
would go with
Yeah,
it.
because well, what I've been told is that you set those dates. In fact, I had a number of farmers call from on the weed board with me and say, can you get that changed? But it's DAQ we need to work with.
DAQ.
Yes.
The DAQ makes the
Yes.
rules and they do the processes and everything.
Because it's,
The closed fire
Thank you,
season
Jeff.
is under us, and that's June 1st, October 31st, but
that's-
we have no authority under statute outside of that burn time, so.
I appreciate the update. I think we can make some phone calls on that.
We need to do that.
Yeah, we could, you're
They
unpaid,
were-
Steve
I mean,
Ogden.
you're
We've
right,
got a
this
great
year it's safe.
Chairman who has experience in
Really,
this
yeah.
that can help.
It's getting pretty bad right now.
Yeah,
That's right.
I think it benefits you
Mhm.
if we can take care of some of these burn issues now, especially, you take a look at this week. Since you started this, we're gonna have some rain,
Mhm.
possibly even snow.
Yep,
Why, they should be doing that now, not wait till, end of April to burn.
I
Do it
agree
while the
100%.
soil's wet. Like I told
Mm-hmm.
you, I've been around fire a little bit, and so I understand. Water usually helps when you have fires.
Usually puts it out when it's applied. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you paid attention when you worked for the Forest Service.
I inhaled a little smoke there now and again. So that's where it goes. Okay, well, that's great information. So anything else before we move?
No, I just, in advance of this, we kind of interrupted your presentation, but this is a necessary evil and
So give me the bottom line. I'm seeing 26 to 47, 6 to 9. I'm assuming we add those up.
So, yeah, we have,
right.
this is the current one. I think we got one.
Believe it's like an increase of 32,600 and something. Per,
Yeah,
per
It's about
agency.
32,000.
Yeah, per agency.
yeah, and on the last page of that, there's an appendix and it kind of shows the total breakdown of each agency and
Yeah.
we're pretty much an even share across the three
Yeah.
agencies.
The only thing that we don't put on is the cost of the engine. We supply an engine for 6 months and I think it's $2,100 a month and they don't want us to put that on the actual appendix that the state provides that.
All right. So I wish Stephanie Ebert was here. Where do we take this money from? I'm assuming you're looking for this change now. Immediately.
Yeah.
Or as soon as possible.
And I, by the way, I've had conversations with Stephanie Ebert.
I'm calling her, do you care?
No,
Oh, this is-
but just about a month or two ago. So she's got some of this information.
Conference room for a minute.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So do you have any objection, since you're the one that brought this to the table?
I don't know how to make the money just appear.
Well, I think we've got a couple of pots out there, in my mind, we might be able to take.
Well, I was gonna call Julie out at the sheriff's office to see if she could help us with this, but
I think we might even have a little,
Stephanie's coming.
couple ARPA funds
maybe,
sticking
oh,
around.
maybe,
So
Well,
this,
this is not ongoing.
yeah.
so is this, so this is ongoing?
This is
Yeah.
an ongoing.
Wow, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
take that back.
Primarily wages.
Yeah, so these cooperative agreements are a 5-year agreement
Okay.
and
Take that
unfortunately,
off the table.
I'm not putting it all on the district either. Our agency totally messed up and forgot somehow to redo this agreement, you know.
So you're not looking for retro, you're just
No.
looking here
No,
forward.
here forward.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
Okay,
Weber Fire District's been shouldering all that as we've gone forward and we're just want to.
Would you be willing to do it for another 5 years?
No,
Okay.
so.
so
To be
Weber
blunt.
Fire Districts, might as well ask,
Might as well.
Weber Fire District's been bearing the burden of this,
Yeah.
yes.
okay? Got it.
For the
There
county,
she
You're
is.
gonna have to give
Now we
us a
have the-
second update.
The right Stephanie here.
Yeah,
Stephanie,
Russell,
you're
I don't know.
good. Do you remember,
Your staff,
Okay.
I'm here.
Actually,
Choosing.
So,
we're looking for an additional $32,000 for these gentlemen.
remember the fire, the wildland forestry fire and that
Yes.
kind of stuff?
yes,
Okay,
so we did add some additional, according to the request that you gave me to the final budget.
Oh,
so it's probably already done.
is it done?
Yeah, I think we changed that. It was one of our last
Oh,
changes
okay.
that we already did.
Can you look at that?
I will.
To be fair, she just found out what we were talking about.
Really? Yeah,
She's gonna have to look it up.
look it up, yeah. I've got full face, you'll be able to pull
I
it.
do too.
Since my computer.
Well, it must have been longer, Britt, than 6 weeks ago we started on this.
December.
Okay,
As of December.
Is it 60,000?
30,
32,000 and some odd dollars, right?
more, yeah, so.
you
If
got
you,
this?
it was,
let me see that,
So it was about 35. We added about 26.
so
Well, maybe
that's,
that's what. Adding 26, that's the wages.
You gotta add, all three of these
So
together.
the total.
yeah,
Total contract is 60,000.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I put that in there.
So that's what that is, a 60,000?
yeah, the appendix in the back kind of shows the breakdown
Yeah.
between all three. And it broken down exactly where it's all going to,
Nothing like asking for something you
well,
already have.
Mike is in,
Yeah.
oh,
that's easy, right?
60,821, the way I'm reading here.
Yep.
And we'll find out if we have it.
That's not the one I got, Mike. Packet.
You need a new agreement?
No, yeah, just to be reminded.
There's 61,000 and that was approved in the 2026 budget. So
Wow.
I think we're there.
There you go.
$200 over. How good's that?
179.
179, don't get too generous.
Well, I like rounding up,
That's
sorry.
picky, but 179.
So.
Okay,
we
sounds
put that
like you
in there.
guys are okay.
But thanks for the visit.
Yeah,
Always good to see you.
How about
All right.
that?
Do we need their help on that exemption?
Can you guys,
On that exemption?
can you guys, if we
Yeah.
start going after the DAQ, will you support us?
Absolutely.
When can you get us a letter that says that?
Hopefully by the first next week.
So
Okay.
just it started today and it goes to the end of April.
I'm
They're gonna
planning-
get us a letter supporting that.
I'm gonna make a couple of phone calls, hopefully if I get out of here before 5 o'clock, which I should. See who we need to talk to.
Yeah, if you let me know what you need from me, we'll do whatever we can. to help.
We need it in writing for now at both levels and just because it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be super tough.
Yeah, it is. You need a signature on that, I take it.
Yeah.
Is it?
Eventually.
This guy, they'll have to go through a commission meeting.
This will go through commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay,
Like a whale.
we'll be in touch.
Okay, that'll work.
Yeah, let me know the meeting. I'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I can't believe we're the only county that would be putting pressure. So do they just have those for county by county, or is it statewide that DAQ does that?
It's county by county.
Okay. So nothing else, we just apply for an exemption like we did with the weeds. Should be allowed.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works. I mean, I know we do have control to like shut the fall time down
Yeah,
from being able to do the open burn window on that, but I've never done it on this side of things, so in the spring. I believe originally the counties made the decision of
Well, originally the counties pretty much ran the show on
Yeah.
when it was gonna happen and
Well, that's what I
how long and
thought.
everything, but that changed.
so I guess the question, who enforces that then? If DAQ, are you guys charged with enforcement?
Yeah, we are.
Okay,
we get stuck with that's the unfortunate thing, and then there's a online DAQ burn permit application that they go in and apply for, so I've never done it, so I don't know. I fall under the ag exemption, so on anything I do,
We don't get a lot of say, but then they tell us to enforce everything that they come up with, so.
right?
We understand
It's kinda
unfunded
we
mandates.
get that. So are they also the ones that set the limit that you have to have it out by dark?
Yeah.
Because, that's the other problem. Some of these guys along the Weber River start burning these big trees. They bury them and they're still smoking. They
3
just
weeks later.
They just burn underneath.
Yeah.
Like you might as well burn it one time and get it over with.
And the reason they do the dark stuff is to mitigate the 911 calls into the PSAPs.
Okay.
That's why it's always been after dark. They want everything extinguished. And then obviously your chlorine drops at night and it consolidates that smoke into an inversion.
Yeah.
You know, it'll drop it down low and so we'll start smelling it and calling.
Yep.
So,
Got
So
it.
you just need a letter in support of doing
So
a mandate.
We'll find out who we need to contact down there and then we'll probably have you address a letter to them.
Okay. You got my stuff. You'll get with me for what you want.
Do you wanna get this on the agenda for approval? You wanna work on that?
There you go.
I put a note on there to invite you.
yeah, just send an invite out and I'll be there.
I think we've already got this on the agenda for
It
2
is?
weeks from
Oh,
now.
it is?
Looks familiar.
There you go.
But
2 weeks from, a couple
2
more
weeks from-
weeks. Yeah, we just needed to make sure we had enough time.
we'll make sure
Yeah.
we'll make sure you're on the list. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steph.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Motion to saunter until
No.
3, no.
no, we got a
never mind.
1:30.
Never mind.
Let's not
Thank
skip
you,
our 1:30.
Stephanie.
We got members of the public here that. You can sit on
Greg,
this
you
side of the
wanna-
table, since I'm here, you're talking about this next agenda item, okay?
I'm not talking, I'm listening.
Okay, we'll pull up the seat. We may ask you a question.
Oh, shoot.
Miss Wendy,
Hey there,
how are you?
I am doing well. Good to see you.
Good to be seen, good to see you.
How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Jim. I'll come
Jim.
around the table.
Nice
Jim Harvey.
to meet you.
What's your name?
Wendy Fisher.
Nice to meet you, Miss Fisher.
Yeah.
I'm Commissioner Sharon Bolos. Nice to meet
He's
you.
got some
Nice to
pretty
meet you.
fancy boots on there, Sharon.
Well, she should.
Nice to meet you.
Wendy,
Right,
appreciate you coming in.
absolutely. Absolutely, and you?
Great call.
Yeah. Thank you. I was
We
gonna
talked on the
say,
phone recently.
Recently?
Yeah.
Good. Well, I appreciate you coming. Oh, let's make this official. We're still going, I think, here. This is our 1/3 discussion regarding using rollback tax funding for conservation easements. We're happy to have with us Wendy Fisher from the Utah Open Lands, and Craig Call is with us as a member of the public. So just as a way of introduction, probably it's been 6 months ago or so. It's been a while. So went in it, go a long way back through time at the legislature. We worked on Marie McAllister, looking at funds for conservation easements.
Yep,
We worked on a little project called Monastery
yep.
for a few months. And so she's like the expert in
Great.
conservation easements. And because of the change in the law that was last year, right? Was it this year?
Actually, it was 2 years ago, and then they made another change
So-
to it last year.
Yeah, the change last year was all the
Mhm.
rollback
Yep.
taxes
Yep,
now are to be used for conservation easements.
yes,
So we've had some discussion as far as, okay, how do we set that up in terms of policy when Craig came down with the group and suggested, okay, how do we make this work going forward? So Wendy called, we finally hooked up and said, come in and educate us again on conservation easements, maybe make some recommendations, what you would think would be good for the county. The number, and again, it's not a huge amount of money, but the numbers that I thought I heard, that by next year we'll have about 2.5 to 3 million in that fund to roll back.
Mhm.
Again, a majority of that, I think they said 80+% comes from Western Weber County. Be less and less coming from Ogden Valley, just because there's not gonna be a lot of people being allowed to develop up there, so
right,
that's just the way it is.
yep. Yep,
So
absolutely.
Wendy, I'm gonna turn the time over to you to maybe share your story.
Sure, so, and I can hook my computer up, got pretty pictures and all sorts of things, but I also, I don't know how best to,
We can do that. I think we can. We need to get one of the, 'cause you'll have to hook up, I believe, to,
if you've got an HDMI cord, I'm good to go.
Isn't that over there, Jessica?
there we go.
Christie's gonna help you.
Christie will get it.
Okay,
Just gotta talk about it. She showed it.
Yeah, yeah. I think she's been listening to us.
Zoom link and we can share it through Zoom.
sure, I can do that too. Is there a plug that I might be able to plug into?
Yes.
Yep, so
Good
let's
app.
see.
This is it.
Christie's taking care of you there, I think.
Some. And what is am I the CVBG or guest, CVB guest?
Is there a WC guest?
WVB. WC,
For the Wi-Fi?
yeah. Picking it up.
Should be Weber County open.
Yeah, is it open? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Maybe try refreshing it, like go out and.
Okay. Hmm.
Join. Well, if you, just click into that, you might have to move over one seat.
Okay,
It's not long. Oh, will that one work on your computer? Or do
Yeah.
you need a different?
no, I can do this. This will be great. Okay,
I think we might have. There you go.
great.
Look at that.
Let's see, what am I at panel wise here? I should have enough, so I should be good. Well, just to give you a little bit of a sense of Utah Open Lands.
Yeah.
Just so you know who we are a statewide organization. We are a private nonprofit organization, and we are known as a land trust. What we really specialize in is working with landowners. But we've also done various different conservation easements, working with a number of different governmental entities, from the Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands to Wasatch County. So these are just some of the projects that you may be familiar with. I think more recently, a lot of people heard about Bridalveil Falls potentially being sold off to development. We actually work with Utah County to ensure the preservation of that particular property. But as I said, a lot of the projects that we work on really are with private landowners. Here are some of the government entities, going through this quickly so we can get to your questions. This was the Snake Creek Conservation Easement that is now part of Wasatch Mountain State Park. It was a private piece of property. We worked with the state of Utah to see that protected. There's Governor Levitt signing conservation.
Isn't that Mike Levitt
That's
down?
here's
Mike Levitt, and you get extra points if you can point out the person in the room that's actually me. I'm the one in the tan jacket years and years ago.
Yeah,
Wow.
you're right there.
Yep.
Yeah, next to the guy with the well, yeah.
Yep, right next to Cortland Nelson.
You guessed it if you weren't looking down.
Okay, well, there you go.
Hey, your face wasn't showing.
That's right. So as I said, we were the first local land trust in the state. We started in 1990. I've been with the organization the entire time, so 36 years. We are a public charity under 501c3, that code, but we also are under special designation under the IRS tax code, which is 170H, which everybody loves talking about the IRS tax code, I'm sure. The main point is that actually allows for conservation easements in terms of the tax value that you can get. It's considered a tax donation, and that'll come in, I think, really in a big way when we talk about how you might want to go about ranking projects and how you might want to utilize the rollback taxes to maximize the leveraging that can take place. So what is a conservation easement? It is basically a legal binding agreement that is entered into between a landowner and a organization like Utah Open Lands to ensure that the recreational or cultural or agricultural or wildlife values are protected by restricting development, is basically the way that it works. It is in perpetuity. That is codified not only under state law, but also under federal law. And a lot of kind of common elements to it is it runs with the land in perpetuity. So yes, it is on the title. Anybody who purchases a piece of property is made aware that there's a conservation easement. Does it restrict all development? No. I actually like to think about conservation easements as basically kind of a CC&Rs, if you will, covenants, codes, and restrictions for agricultural land, right? So you do the same sort of visioning, you do the same real planning about what's going to happen to that land in the future. And then you determine, do we need a barn? Do we need a place for some seasonal workers? Do we need another house for the family? All of those things are things that get considered when you do the conservation easement. One of the ways that communities have been able to ensure sort of the protection of some of these landscapes that they really care about is to do open space bonds. So actually, there are a lot of communities, I've put them up there on the screen, that have passed open space bonds. Most recently, Midway City passed a $5 million bond. What I can tell you from working with Wasatch County and, Midway City, Utah Open Lands was actually able to bring in other dollars, state and local money, as well as federal money, to leverage the county and the city bond dollars. They had a total of 15 million at a leveraging ratio of 5 to 6 to 1 for the county and 10 to 1 for the city. So we protected the Kohler Dairy. I don't know if any of you have ever eaten Heber Valley cheese. If you haven't, I strongly suggest going out. Work with the Kohler family to actually put their land into a conservation easement while they're still running their dairy. They're one of 2 remaining dairies in the Wasatch County area. And one of the things that we really looked at with them which I think is important when you embark on these programs, whether you're looking at, Western Weaver County or wherever, is to really think about what is your agricultural economy going to be. And one of the reasons we started with the Kohlers was because they were really like an anchor tenant. We think about putting together strip mall or something like that, right? You need something that's going to attract other businesses. Well, in Midway and in Wasatch County, the kind of niche marketing that Heber Valley Cheese had done, but also the longstanding work that the family had done and the other places that they were grazing. So even renting other pastures, we knew that if we could protect their property, they actually would be kind of an anchor tenant for agriculture economy in the area.
Well, if the Kohlers did it, then maybe we could do it, is what you're saying, yeah.
So let's just talk about what happens when a landowner makes a decision to put a conservation easement on the property. It doesn't happen overnight. And I want to stress this because as you go through expending your rollback tax dollars, you'll want to think about what happens to the landowners as they're moving through this. So we most recently protected the Flying A Ranch in the North Fields of the Heber Valley. This is Chad Giles. He is going to be the continued owner and rancher of this. His dad's now 82, but still out there ranching. So it's always good to know that you have the next generation. And that becomes one of the fundamental conversations that you start having at the beginning of this process is, what's the next generation look like? You need to be working with a qualifying conservation entity under 170H. Not all nonprofits would qualify under 170H. Utah Open Lands is an accredited organization. Again, we've been around for a long time, so we've done a number of these deals. And so we have been recognized from an IRS perspective as having the resources and the commitment to ensure the preservation of these landscapes long-term. So we are a qualifying entity, but you as a governmental entity can be one as well. There can be national, federal, and national entities as well. This is just a little screen. If you want to know more about how to go through initiating the process or understanding more, we have a landowner worksheet and a landowner guide that is in our website. So if you go to this particular area, you'll find it. But as you go through the process from the landowning perspective and they decide this is what we want to do, we want to protect this land in perpetuity. We have the next generation coming along. You have to go through a process, and this would be true for you even if you were providing and supplying some money. So the example that I'm giving here is actually kind of takes you through the process, assuming that you are going to use some of your rollback taxes in part of the process. So you first have to figure out what the conservation easement value determination is. And Gage and I worked a lot on appraisals and when we were working on looking at some conservation up in the Ogden Valley, because that becomes a really key part of the process. It's an independent part of the process, so it's not something that the land trust does. And you as a county, I think that would be one of the things that would be valuable is you're not necessarily telling these landowners how much their land is worth. You actually have to go out and get a qualified conservation easement appraisal, which is not like every single appraisal. But basically, if you look at it, I have a little screen down here where it says FMV before conservation easement and FMV after conservation easement. So let's assume the fair market value. So that's what would a willing seller pay to a willing buyer for a piece of property. So this is before we put the conservation easement. And let's say that land, because I don't like math, is worth $1 million, okay? And then you're going to look at, well, if we strip away the development values and we take this down to, it's just going to be its agricultural value. The fair market value, what would a willing buyer pay a willing seller after that conservation easement restricts the property? You say it's $350,000. Then the fair market value of that conservation easement is the difference, the delta, $650,000. So if you were looking at it from a perspective as a county who is going to be putting in funds for this, this is one of the first ranking criteria that I look at. And it's done around really the nation. And we see it also in a number of programs, whether you're looking at the Leroy McAllister Fund to leverage some of your dollars, or you're looking at the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which through the Farm Bill has funding for agricultural land easement programs. What you would be looking at that point is seeing if there were landowners that were willing to make a partial contribution of the value. So typically that's looked at about being 25%. If you look at Wasatch County, for example, they basically say they're not going to, unless it's a special circumstance, give money to a conservation easement project where the landowner doesn't have skin in the game and the landowner hasn't made a contribution of 25% of the value. So if you assume that, you're basically looking at a bargain sale value. So I've run the numbers here. The 25% would be essentially 165,000. To be honest with you, one of the ways that I say that is, look, I don't want to have to go out and raise money that somebody's just going to have to turn around and pay Uncle Sam in taxes. I'd rather that you take the donation and get that donative value, because you can get value for it, and I'll show you on the next slide. And then that reduces the amount that we're having to pay for the conservation easement. So here again, you have a total fee value, but again, the landowner is retaining their ownership of the land. So they are not giving up their land, so they still retain a value. We've determined that the conservation easement, as I showed you in the calculation below, is 650,000. The landowner is going to make a 25% gift of 165. So the bargain sale value is 487,500. Why is this important? Well, this is one of the ways that you can leverage these funds really to do the most good and to work with as many landowners as you possibly can. I know, because I've had a lot of landowners from actually West Weber who've contacted me and said, hey, I'd like to do a conservation easement. But as you probably know, the land values there out there are pretty astronomical. So getting to a value that you could potentially afford from either a county to utilize those rollback taxes, or even through a funding source, you're going to have to find some creative ways, and hopefully the landowner is going to be willing to participate in some of these tax benefits. So in the case of the Giles property, the majority of the funding that we secured, so there again is Chad, that was actually on our Leroy McAllister site visit, right there, that picture. So they actually made over 30% contribution of value.
Now, does that contribution have to be in cash?
No, it comes off of the top of that conservation easement. So they got 30% less than what we would have paid them for the conservation.
So they don't
easement.
necessarily have to write a check for
Yeah,
that.
right. Yep.
Okay, that's, I
Yep.
think, important to know, yeah.
Yep. No, it's a really great point, Commissioner. The other part of this is that the majority of the funding for the Giles property actually came through the NRCS Agricultural Land Easement Program. So even though you may be only looking at 2.5 million and you've got land prices that are $200,000 plus per acre, you actually could potentially couple together some of these different funding resources. So again, when you're looking at the Leroy McAllister Fund, typically they will only provide 50% of the value. The rest of the value has to come up with partner contributions. With NRCS, they look at 25% of a landowner contribution helps move you forward in the process, but also unless it's a grasslands of special significance, and I can talk about what that means. NRCS, typically for irrigated farmland, they're only willing to pay up to 50% of the value. So again, if you're looking at, okay, we've got 2.5 million, wanting to go as far as it possibly can, you have a federal program that's willing to pay 50% of the value of the conservation easement. Landowner kicks in 25% of the value, and maybe you as a county are putting in, 10 or 15% of that remaining 25%. Well, you get a land agent or a land partner like Utah Open Lands coming in and helping to raise some of those additional dollars, either going to the state or going to private foundations. And then this is how it works out for the landowner. If they're a qualifying farmer or rancher, they can actually take 100% of their adjusted gross income over 16 years to use up the value of the gift. This is an increased incentive that the IRS has done, recognizing that a lot of landowners are land rich, cash poor. And so when that payment comes in, they actually have something that they can offset it if they've made a contribution. So what does a typical transaction look like from Utah Open Lands perspective? Typically, we work with a letter of intent, and then we begin to initiate the appraisal process. It can take about 18 months once you're approved to work through the federal process. For Mr. Giles, the property that I just showed you that we just did up in the Heber Valley, I think was about 4 years in the making, coupling together the funding. So you have to have landowners that love their land and that are willing to be patient and work through the process. For that reason, we kind of look through market analysis and market values as opposed to jumping right into an appraisal, because that appraisal will become stale and you will have to pay for it over and over again. What we learned from the Kohler project is we ended up doing like 3 to 5 appraisals, paying for the same appraisal over and over again just to get it updated. And that's money that nobody wants to spend. You have the purchase agreement that comes together. The due diligence includes survey, grant writing, title work, easement drafting, baseline. If the landowner doesn't own the mineral interest, you have to get a geologist to say that the minerals are so remote as to be negligible. That's something that we work with. Obviously, there's fundraising and then closing. The easement gets signed, recorded, and the landowner is paid. There does have to be property tax notice to the county assessor. And with respect to Greenbelt taxes, there is something that we actually worked with a couple of different legislators. What was his name? Leonard Blackham was one of the ones that helped to sponsor this, which is the conservation easement rollback relief. So if a landowner, for some reason, when they make that transaction and they do a conservation easement, if they can't farm it right away, or if it comes out of farming for a bit, because they're not going to be creating development costs for the county, the legislature recognized that there was no need to have them pay into rollback taxes. Your assessor may have a different view of how they're looking at the law in terms of the difference in the delta between greenbelt or farming value and the conservation easement. So there's things to talk about from that perspective, but if they put a conservation easement on it, allows them not to have to pay the rollback taxes. So that again is a value for the landowner. And that's one of the things that we talk about with these landowners as we're going through the process is they don't have to pay those rollback taxes. They get paid for the conservation easement. So there are a number of values that they end up having that aren't, as you said, Commissioner, cash out of hand, right? But actually come off of the transaction and make it more available for everybody to be able to do.
So stay on that slide a second. So on the purchase agreement, who are the parties to that purchase agreement?
It really depends. It can be Utah Open Lands.
Okay, so basically whoever, I'm gonna call the mediator.
Yes, yep.
Intermediator, whatever yeah.
So for example, in Wasatch County, as they've gone through the process of expending their bond funds, and now they're looking at their rollback taxes.
Right.
They basically have put in code a number of different elements that I think are really important to consider. One is the water rights. If the property is irrigated, you have to make sure that the water rights that have historically been used for that irrigation stay with the property, right? Otherwise, you're just gonna get a weed patch.
I've talked to Craig a little bit about this already.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd like your card, by the way, a couple of them before you leave today.
okay, absolutely.
Yeah, well, and let me back up a second.
Yeah.
If it's a legitimate appraisal, the appraiser is gonna appraise that with water rights, or that value in today's world drops substantially because there is no more water
And
purchase
that's become
to speak of.
That's become a really big issue because I think a lot of
Yeah,
this work that was done on the East Coast, they don't think about water rights, but you're
No.
absolutely
No.
right. That developable value is based on the water rights. So the landowner needs to understand that part of the reason the water rights need to be encumbered by the conservation easement is you're getting paid a development value. And
Yeah.
that includes whether or not you have.
it's
the
not a
water
fair
rights.
value if those water rights were to go somewhere else.
Exactly.
Do you still have to
Exactly.
pay those taxes on those water rights?
Yes, the landowner still has to pay those
Yeah.
taxes. And what we did, for example, with the Giles family is Utah, because those are water shares. So, right, we have different values between water rights and water shares.
Yeah.
And this, I think, becomes something that not every organization is thinking about. But those water shares, Utah Open Lands is now a co-holder of those water shares with Midway or with Northfield Irrigation to ensure that they don't get sold off. And because even though you put in the conservation easement that those shares are essentially encumbered by the conservation easement. If they're shares, the way they're treated under the law is that they're private property. And so again, that's where Utah Open Lands, we have special things within our conservation easements to ensure that even if you're talking about water shares, those shares that have historically been a part of that property will now forever be part of that property, and we are co-holders. It also enables us to pay the taxes in the event that somebody doesn't pay the taxes to ensure that something doesn't happen to those water rights.
So Utah Open Lands in your case then would show up on Weber Basin's roll
Yep.
as the owner of those water rights.
Co-owner with the landowner.
Yeah, okay.
Because we want the landowner to continue,
Yeah,
right?
no,
To use those for beneficial use. So we are just there as an interest in the property.
Okay.
Because we do have a legitimate property interest. And of course, Gage, you understand this from all your work in real estate, but we have a value in an interest in that property because we hold the conservation
yeah,
easement.
absolutely.
And so from that perspective, we do want it to continue to be used beneficial use. And we could even, I mean, I've moved my fair share of hand lines. I will be honest about that in my day. Not that I want to get out there and do that, but that we can make sure that that happens. And there, believe it or not, there are young farmers and ranchers all the time that are calling Utah Open Land saying, I can't afford to get into agriculture because of the cost of the raw land value. So we do believe that there are farmers and ranchers out there that would be interested, you know, kind of as the generation moves forward. But those are all things we think about at the beginning of the process.
Good point.
So the water rights are something that are actually in their code, that has to be part of the conservation easement transaction. The other thing that they look at is the percent. They require a 25% contribution. They've also said that in order to use their funds, they would prefer that they not provide more than 20% of the cost of the project. That may be a little bit tough depending on where you are at, but they obviously, as a county council, have the right to, you know, kind of make some allowances if it's a piece of property that is really, really incredibly important that needs to be protected, and there are no other ways to do it.
Didn't we add another $100,000 to the deal up there at the monastery? Something like
I
that.
think it was, might have been 100 or 50.
I think it was 50.
I remember 50, but yeah.
So then another part of this that I think is really important that they've done in terms of codifying theirs is looking at the layering of the different conservation values. So one of the ways that they assess some of their projects is if it's a farm that is just incredibly scenic and beautiful, right? So this right here is the Armstrong property. And as you can see, this is the view actually from the municipal golf course that you can see this view. So if it's got a scenic view, it's a working landscape. If it's got any historic value to it, maybe there's a historic barn on it. This barn was built in 1926. Maybe it's got some really extraordinary wildlife habitat as well. If you begin layering those different values on it, that improves the ranking as well. And recreation access and public recreation is not a requirement, but it is something that they've put in their code that could also help your ranking. So maybe, for example, I know in Cache County, one of the things that they looked at was a piece of property where they knew that it would have value to an overall recreational trail system. And they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to have a trail right on the edge of the farm. And the landowner said that works, that's fine. We did a transaction along the Cisco Road up in Bear Lake. Same sort of thing. When we did that transaction, there was a bike lane that they wanted to circumnavigate. So all of those things can become what I would call a point system, right? So you get X amount of points if you're, you know, protecting agricultural working landscape. You get X amount of points, even potentially for how large the landscape is. You know, maybe you want to focus on some of your first projects out of the gate on a larger landscape because you know that farming operation is going to be more intact. One of the things that I think actually will get you points when you look at the Leroy McAllister Fund is how this farm or ranch that you're protecting intersects with some of the other agricultural producers in the area. So for example, we just got some funding for the Pear Tree Llama Ranch property where they actually lease out their land to the Kohlers. So it was, hey, you've already protected Kohlers. Kohler wrote a really nice letter of support. So, you know, you can make those sorts of things. I almost look at it as kind of a point system, and then it doesn't become, hey, it's the first one in the gate or something like that. You look at all of the different options and you're not being arbitrary and capricious. You're saying, you know, these are the ones that make the most sense. The role of the land trust, we have an ongoing role in terms of stewardship, continue our relationship with the land and the landowner, and it comes with a permanent responsibility. For that, we actually have a stewardship fund. The stewardship to continue to preserve these properties is required by Leroy McAllister funding. You have to have a way that you're going to do it. It's required by NRCS. You have to have a way that you're doing it. And it is really a fundamental requirement of the IRS and the National Land Trust Alliance. Okay, questions?
So we know that the funds kind of come and go. Will Ray McAllister have funding now, and NRCS, I've heard kind of is hit and miss. Do both of those funds have money now, or?
Yes, actually, both of those funds have
Okay.
money. I don't know exactly how much. So the big beautiful bill that Congress passed actually put a fair amount of money. I want to say it was in the hundreds of millions of dollars into the national NRCS process.
Oh, okay.
I actually had a conversation with Representative Malloy's person just the other day saying, hey, we want to make sure that Utah, because we're all taxpayers, get as much of our fair share as
Yeah.
possible. When I first started doing conservation easements and working with the agricultural land program with NRCS, states like Michigan were getting 15 million, we were getting like 350,000.
Yeah.
That has really increased dramatically. Utah Open Lands actually applied for $20 million. We received approval for that through a regional conservation partnership program, which is something that I think we could potentially do in Western Weber County to look at getting a broader amount of funds from the feds. I know actually I talked with Jeremy Christensen with the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food, and I believe he applied. We actually, unfortunately, were applying at the same time and we got ours and he didn't get his. But again, I think it's something that UDAF was looking at kind of, especially because Western Weber County and a lot of Weber County is also considered part of the greater Great Salt Lake Sentinel landscape. So there's money there through the REPI program. I don't know that they've put the money in there yet. So we're all waiting for essentially these funds to be unlocked. And to see how much is in NRCS. So there's going to be two different pots for NRCS. You're going to have your regular agricultural land easement program, and then you're going to have your RCPP program that you can apply for. And that's something that I think from Utah Open Lands perspective, from our perspective, would make the most sense. And basically what you're saying is landowners in this vicinity, you don't have to necessarily, I mean, you want to get them at least in agreement, right? We're not taking anybody's property. That's not what I'm suggesting. But that they're in agreement that in this particular area, yeah, I'd be interested in protecting the property. And then what you want to do is you want to say, okay, well, this is the region that we want to look at. These are the specific properties that we would try to target. We're going to go for a regional conservation partnership program. And we already know we've got commitment of the 2.5 million or the rollback tax money that's coming in from Weber County, because you have to demonstrate when you walk forward in this process that you actually have matching funds. For us up in Wasatch County, what we did was we utilized, again, some of those bond monies when we applied for the RCPP. That money was clawed back when federal funds were frozen. So even though we had approval, we hadn't yet had it obligated. So that money was removed. We're hoping that that money comes back this next year. And we believe that those kinds of funds are going to be available again through the RCPP program. What I can't stress enough is even if the funds aren't there today, if you start now and you start moving through the process, even under the Utah legislation, if you've got landowners and you're starting to move through finding a way to fund their conservation easement, I believe the statute does say that you can continue to keep it as county instead of having it roll into the Lee Ray McAllister statewide.
I think we have 10 years.
I think you do, but I think even at that 10 years, because that's something we talked about with Representative Snyder, in that these take a long time. I mean, again, we just completed the Giles property. Don't ever ask Russ, or Grant's gone now, but don't ever ask Russ Kohler how long it took us to get through it. I mean, the Giles property was 4 years.
Right.
So, and I think the other thing for landowners is, you know, there's going to come a time when a landowner is going to want to come and talk to you from a county commission perspective. And because potentially it is a real estate transaction, you know, they want to be able to have some of those discussions. So you probably will end up having some closed sessions to meet with some of these landowners to understand really what their financial issues are and obligations are. But for example, one of the reasons I'm talking about the Giles property is all of that does become public, obviously, when the county council makes a vote and those sorts of things. So again, I think that what you want to do is you want to start kind of moving that program forward and having an application process. We actually put together for Wasatch County and Midway City just a very simple sort of almost check the box initial notice of interest. So that might be a way for landowners very easily to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna check the notice of interest. And then you can gather a sense of how much you have in terms of landowners that are really interested in doing this. And then the other thing about the Wasatch County process and the Midway City process is that they highly recommend, they don't require it, but they highly recommend that the landowners work with a certified land trust organization. So like Utah Open Lands, that's an accredited organization.
I think that's critical. Questions, Commissioner
I
Bowles,
don't have any.
Commissioner Harbert?
I've got a million questions, but not for here. I'm. The more you learn, the more questions, the more you realize you don't know. And so, what's the minimum acreage?
So we have protected something as small as 3 acres, but that had a very specific public use to it. I think the best way to look at it is if it is a piece of property and you're asking the landowner to also be making a contribution, then they really do have to qualify under the conservation purposes test under the IRS, which you probably would want to require for you all, because let's envision a 10-acre farm. Because I'm not really giving you the full answer to it because it varies. Let's say it's a 10-acre farm, but it's surrounded by what you know is going to be multifamily development. The likelihood of that continuing, unless it's going to become maybe potentially a community garden, is going to be not really something that happens. We work to protect about 6 acres in what they call an agri-hood in Salt Lake City. That's been really, really very successful. There's another nonprofit that's a community garden that does some of it, but there are a number of landowners that basically took part of their land and put it under conservation easement, so it's contiguous 6 acres. And they are, growing lots of fruits and vegetables and all of that.
Huh.
So it really depends on whether or not, at the end of the day, the value that you can establish there is something that's going to be sustained in perpetuity. You don't want a landowner that's protecting 10 acres that then can no longer farm their property because at the end of the day, it's surrounded by multifamily development. So one of the things we look at is zoning. But we also look at in those instances, acreages that either are greater of size, or are there other surrounding landowners that want to protect the land as well? Or are they adjacent to like Weber Pathway? Are they adjacent to a pathway? And then it has this additional value because no matter what, when you're traveling along the pathway, you're going to want to look out at this open field and say, wow, isn't that just beautiful? Reminds me of, bygone days. I grew up in Utah County and watching the orchards and the farmland just disappear. It's just heartbreaking. And when you think about food security, that's another issue as well. So you can really tailor it to what you want in terms of your program.
So if a guy wanted to take his acres and put it into a conservation easement, he has to come up with the money to do it?
No, if he wants to do his land in a conservation easement, he would contact an organization like Utah Open Lands. Or maybe he submits a notice of interest to the county. And then we work with that landowner to determine how we can move through the process, where we're going to get the funds from. Any contribution of value that we would require from him, like the 25%, that contribution would come off of the value of the
Like your
easement.
presentations.
Yeah. So we wouldn't, typically, there isn't money out of pocket
Yeah,
for landowners.
Said that too.
Other than upfront would be the appraisal.
Well, so the appraisal is something that we either try to get funded or we work to share that value
Okay.
with the landowner. So for the Giles, for example, we paid for that appraisal entirely. And then for the Kohlers, we paid for that value entirely.
Good to know.
There are things like surveys, like if you have to get your property surveyed, it's kind of clear title issues. Like that's not on us, that's on you. So we try to do that. There is also a granting program through the Department of Agriculture and Food where they will give a landowner the money for the due diligence sort of thing, survey and things like that. It's a no interest, basically loan. And then you have to pay it back once you've been funded through the conservation easement process.
I didn't realize that's good.
That's good. Okay, you've got a couple of cards with you, I'm sure.
I don't know if I do. I'll have to look.
So you mentioned Wasatch
I can get
County
all
had
right.
policies or
I can get all
ordinances
right.
in place. If you're sitting on this side of the table, what would you, knowing that we have these funds coming about, I think you answered our questions, at least in my mind, how we leverage those funds. which is to use the process.
Right.
But do we need any policies in place? And then, again, if you're Weber County, how would you get the word out to property owners that we want to stand up this program, even though we don't have a program right now?
Right.
How do we start that process, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, excellent questions. The way that I would look at it is what we've done is we do a number of what we call landowner nights. We bring in someone like Russ Kohler. We bring in someone like Chad Giles, somebody who's gone through the process, that has a working farm or ranch, that's a legitimate, like, hey, I know how tough it can be trying to keep an agricultural operation going. So we bring them in and, you know, we would advertise it through Soil Conservation Service, maybe even through like a Weber Water Conservancy District, you know. We could advertise it through all sorts of different mechanisms.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's going and talking to an individual landowner who is, you know, got a lot of farmers and ranchers and says, hey, I'd like to have you come do a presentation, because I think there's a couple of things. One, there's the program that you guys eventually will really put together in terms of how you're going to rank and how you're going to do that. And that's something Utah Land is happy to spend some time, you know, helping you work through that. But then the other part of it is just helping landowners understand what conservation easement is and what it's not. I think a lot of people have a false notion of conservation easements because they're used for lots of different things. They're used for everything from, you know, protecting wildlife habitat to protecting working farms and ranches. And I think, you know, a lot of people can initially say, oh gosh, this could be really scary. So we try to have a number of landowner nights. We've done the kind of the in the living room most recently. The people who are doing the Pear Tree Llama Ranch, they invited a number of their neighbors to come to their house, and they just, you know, had a couple of, you know, cakes out, and we sat down and talked about what it means to put a conservation easement, and landowners were able to ask all the questions. So I think the reason that I suggest that is I think that people may not be ready to go through a Weber County process at this point.
Right.
But they want to really understand more about what a conservation easement is all
agree.
about. And, you know, I think sometimes people worry too, that if they put it forward in a regulatory perspective, that somehow it's going to mean something to the planning and zoning on their property. So there's just a lot of little things like that, but we feel like there's a lot of different strategies that you can work through, including having these landowner nights. And especially when you bring another landowner to the table, I think it's really helps them understand the process, and, you know, they'll tell them straight up, yeah, it takes a long time to get through this process. It's not for the faint of heart, but if this is something you want to pass on to the next generation, it is doable, it's possible, and it's really rewarding at the end of the day.
And, you know, for Weber County, Western Weber County anyway, we have, I'm gonna say 3 or 4, maybe a few more that are currently farming operations or have larger tracts. And a lot of those owners are now being approached for development. I think there's an opportunity to have some of these people say, look, you don't have to sell your entire parcel for development. You could come in and take this section and put in a conservation easement, and it may have some tax benefits to you. Would that?
Yeah. I mean, that's really where you get your big bang for your buck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's a great way to go. I think the other part of it is, I don't know whether Weber County has any open space requirements, but a lot of times what you can see is that, you know, it might even be that the developer might say, okay, well, let's do a life estate lease back to continue this to be agriculture. And I'm going to go above and beyond the open space requirement that's required to get this development done, because I think it's going to create a really high-end model or whatever. And then they actually take the tax deduction. So there are a lot of different strategies to protecting these open spaces. I think the key is really, how are you going to keep those lands working? I'll never forget Commissioner Kerry Peterson. We were talking about this a long time ago, and he was talking about, he was with the Commission for the Department of Ag and Food. We were talking about planning and zoning, and he was saying the tough thing is, you know, 5 acres is too big to mow and too small to plow.
Yeah.
And so what you really,
We know that.
right? So what you really want to look at is, are you getting a conglomeration of those? Are you really having a functional, you know, agricultural program that is going to take place? You're going to have people that are interested in leasing and being a part of it. So all of these things, I think, come into play in having these conversations about what makes sense. in terms of protecting it. And I think there are a lot of tools that can be used, everything from a, agricultural working landscape, to a developer who is looking at things that at the end of the day, increase the value, really the quality of life in Weber County. And that's really, I think fundamentally that's where kind of ends up, is they've seen study after study. When you have some of these open spaces, when you have the fields, farm fields to look over, those things actually continue to stabilize the market long-term.
Agree.
So,
Okay. Commissioner Harvey, anything else?
No, I've lived a lot, but yeah, not right now, thank
Good
you.
information.
and again, I'm happy to come back. I'm
Yeah.
happy to talk through what you might like to do in terms of an intake form for people that might be interested. I can give you a couple examples. We've worked with a lot of the different counties. I can provide you with that kind of information. We can take you through what different codes the counties have in different, whether it's Wasatch County or Summit County or some of these others that have actually worked through this process and now are applying their open space bond process to their Greenbelt rollback tax.
Well, I would like to invite you back when we have a meeting
Great.
with my planning people,
Okay.
and so that they understand this,
Okay.
and that when they have landowners come to this, that this should be part of their conversation. If you thought about this, it may, at least think about
Might
it.
make sense to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because right now, I don't think our planners are really have enough information. I mean, they know conservation easement, but I don't think that's on their checklist to say,
Sure.
look, Mr. Smith, have you talked about a conservation easement, even on a portion of it,
Yep.
like we talked about?
Yep. And again, I think that can be worthwhile. You might have
Yeah,
a couple, I buy my hay from somebody
Yeah.
who's a farmer up here, right? So, they might say, well, this portion we're gonna put under conservation and, oh, it's adjacent to, so-and-so who they're selling this off to development, but now we have a contiguous tract of, farmland that's being protected. The other thing that I will say, you guys can take a look at is if you go to our website,
yeah,
and I've got it up here, and you go to conserve your land and you take a look at the landowner worksheet, that also gives you kind of a sense of questions you might want to have in an intake form to begin the process for a landowner. So there's that information. If you
That's
look at
good.
the landowner guide and the landowner worksheet, it may make you nervous because
I like
there's a
it.
lot of technical IRS mumbo jumbo in it.
Yeah, yeah, let's not get bogged down with code
Yeah.
at this point in time. It's like, you want to
Yeah.
do it or not, and here's the
Yeah.
advantages. Keep
Exactly.
it simple.
Exactly. And I think that would be the biggest value that you could, kind of move forward with.
Yeah.
So,
Craig, any comments or questions?
I do, I've learned a lot. I got 3 pages of notes here, and Wendy and I spent an hour on the phone. I talked to her until past her next appointment.
I know, I feel bad about
She
that.
was so kind to take all the time. And we met, of course, with each of the individual commissioners before.
Right.
And let me kind of give you a status of our stream of consciousness here. We, the valley is different than West Weber.
Yeah.
And we have an incredible advantage, even though I live in West Weber, with with what's already established in the valley.
Mhm.
And so I guess one thing I'd hope is that whatever is created to try to deal with the majority of the money and the opportunities in West Weber doesn't make it too complicated for the modest amount that might be available for the valley. And what I've learned from Wendy today about not only just the complications, but the typical dollar amounts that are necessary to put together easements under the kind of successful work they've done in Wasatch County, which is a whole, it's incredible to hear that. But that isn't always the rule, exactly how things happen. For example, the Jensen Fowers farm on the edge of the Pine View Reservoir right there,
Mhm.
they just donated it. There wasn't, what happened was Marion agreed and the Ogden Valley Land Trust helped her with the dollar, the out the door dollar cost.
Mhm.
And then she donated the land. So there's that opportunity too, to really get dramatic leverage and not complicate things.
Yeah,
So while it sounds like this is gonna have a lot of power and really work for large farmlands on the west side, and on the record, I hesitate to start naming farmers.
Good, how to do that.
But we also want to make sure that we take advantage of the experience that the Ogden Valley
Sure.
Land Trust has and
yeah,
the opportunity for some simplicity. Right now, there's 125 acres on the side of Ogden Canyon that's available that we're almost closing on, and we just need some help from you probably for some of the incidental costs associated with that. And we're just a little bit before the time I thought I'd be ready to come back to you with some specific suggestions. I guess one of the things to keep in mind is some of the money's already 4 years old.
Yeah,
It's been there for a while. And so we'd like to give you some immediate shovel-ready stuff that we can do to make sure we keep ahead of the game on terms of expiration. But I'm pleased to hear of the your anticipated future revenues, because it really could make a difference. This could go a long way, and there's no question, I'm here to swear, on the west side where you have no established entity, that the role that Utah Lands could play is critical. Utah Open Lands could really make a major open the door. So for the county commission, and I haven't been this close to the kind of complicated sorting out you have to do all the time since I was on the Provo City Council a long time ago. But there's different conceptual alternatives you got. One of them is to try to see if you can foster some kind of West Side interest in this to help you sort and prioritize, rather than rely on your staff and then rely on you to review. I mean, if every landowner has to come in and meet with the county commission and every project has to be done $10,000 at a time through the entire $3 million, that's not going to be an efficient use of your time.
no,
On the other, and
No.
again, in the valley, we got the structure, but on the west side, the question is, do you want to create some kind of group that can help you sort through these priorities and take on the vision of what the opportunities are on the west side? And there are certainly people over there that have had a lot of community experience and certainly a certain amount of swagger and influence that maybe could help gather the right kind of support from the existing landowners out there. It could be the catalyst that helps make the expertise that Utah Open Lands brings and the resources you have that kind of brings that into the ideal optimal combination to make the money go as far as we can make it go.
And to
Yeah.
Craig's point, one of the things that most of the county councils have done, Park City did it, Draper City did it, is actually to create an advisory board, which you guys have the authority to do. And basically, they obviously don't make the decisions, but they are a group of residents that are under the purview as a committee of Wasatch County that would take in some of these initial projects. And they would be able to look at all of that and then make recommendations to the county council, the county commission, about where you might want to expend your resources.
I like that.
I think the other thing is, to Craig's point, Utah Open Lands was really nervous when the first Leroy McAllister Fund came about. We were sat on that committee, but that happened in 1999, because up till that point, Utah Open Lands had protected over 25,000 acres, all through donated conservation easements. So that is really possible. But it is also one of the reasons that we like to stress that if there is a donated element to the way that you rank projects coming in, you will leverage that fund, those funds will go further, and you may have the occasional landowner who will come and say, I just need a little bit on the back end to be able to set up payments that will go to a ranch manager, but I don't need the millions of dollars in cash. And I'm willing to take advantage of the tax deduction. So by setting it up with this built-in, the landowners have to have skin in the game to even be a part of the project, is really, I think, one of the best ways to accomplish both of those things, to encourage that potential mindset that Craig was talking about in terms of the donation. But if you put the right people on the committee, they're going to get the word out as well.
Well, and to that point, always, it's just absolutely logical. It makes all the sense in the world that what's really going on behind the scenes is not just the landowner and his wife or she and her husband, it's the grandkids.
Yeah.
And it's those kids wondering, okay, what happened? we bought the red or bought the farm, I mean, we don't have it anymore because somebody conned our parents into signing this this vice grip of a agreement that basically ties our hands, we can't do anything anymore. And so it's the kind of help that Utah Open Lands can offer and bring together the resources to at least provide for some kind of something that can be passed on out of all that value, rather than giving it all away. And yet still, even in those situations, I'm interested to hear for the first time about those requirements that there ought to be at least a 25% donation from the family. I don't think most families are gonna balk that much at that.
No.
It's a whole lot different than 100%. So the expertise that Wendy brings is just essential. It's invaluable.
Yeah.
I will say the other thing that's been one of the hardest things for me to watch is there's a family that I met with, believe it or not, Christmas Eve, 1997. We began talking about protecting their property. They have a lot of heirs. And over the years, they've lost some of their land actually by having to pay estate taxes, being land rich, cash poor, selling off portions of the ranch in order to pay those estate taxes, which that's the great thing from an IRS perspective. There's the Farm and Ranch Protection Act, which gives you an additional 40% off of your taxes in addition to the already lowered value that happens from the conservation easement. But that family's still struggling with what they want to do today with their ranch. And so I think that part of what I look at is, look, if you want to develop your land and you want to exercise that private property right, there's a lot of resources at a county, planning and zoning that'll help you do that. But if you're a landowner who wants to exercise their private property right to preserve their land, you don't have a lot of options. And that's one of the things that Utah Open Lands tries to do as much as possible, is say, hey, we know ways that you can move through this process and exercise your private property right to preserve your land if that's what you choose to do as a landowner.
And another too, I don't mean to drag us on forever. Charlie mentioned a family to me out in West Haven, and I went out and visited with them after we met in February. And it occurred to me, in that case, their land is so valuable, like you say, $200,000 or $300,000 an acre. The TDR program you already have in place, if there was some way to really make sure that works practically. Because if this family could sell their development rights, if somebody like, again, we're on the record, and I think of a builder's name with lots of resources, if we could make it so it was worth the builder's time and energy to buy those development rights at, $40,000 or $50,000 a door, and then actually find a place where the neighbors could stand, doubling the density that it's already zoned for, and that's, a major problem in and of itself. But if the numbers fit, then there's some real power there. One estimate I had is this is like a $30 million piece of property. Well, the donor, if the property owner said, okay, we'll sell it for 22 million, and let's say that development rights are worth that much. I mean, if you could build 400 homes there or 500 homes there and sell those rights for 40,000 a piece, then that would work. But I don't know. I'm not a builder and I don't know how they've calculated. But if there was some way for somebody to say, okay, we'll let you put those 500 homes in this location where right now you could only build 500, we'll let you have 1,000. This may just be lip flapping because we don't know whether there's a political will ever to allow that kind of a thing to happen.
Correct.
But the potential, the numbers would work if the politics worked. That's another factor too.
Well, we have a TDR ordinance, but right now it's pretty restrictive.
Right.
We'd have to tweak that to allow, which I think we're gonna actually see a request for that coming up here in the next couple of months from two major developments out there. So that will probably be addressed here very soon.
Well, if you need a sending zone,
Yeah,
I've got some names.
okay.
And then if you got an abundant sending zone, the question is, can you politically come up with a receiving zone? And of course, this
That's-
developers do
That's
to come up with it.
Yeah, that's the tough part is then, either nobody wants to be receiving zone or everybody wants to be receiving zone.
Right,
So depending on who you talk to.
right.
Well, and I think it does come down to kind of economies of scale. One of the very first projects the Utah Open Lands did was actually with a development group. And at the end of the day, we created a situation where they did some development on the edge
Yeah,
of this open field. And by their own admission, and this was back in the early 90s, the lots adjacent to the open space sold for $50,000 more per lot than the rest of the lots in the subdivision.
Oh,
So sometimes
All kinds of sense.
part of what is really helpful is to sit down with some of these developers. If you get the right mix of people, they can actually work with a landowning family. You take advantage of purchasing some of the land from a conservation easement through the federal program, maybe with some of the rollback taxes. And then you've got a guaranteed open space, and there is money that gets ponied up, but the developer does get it back at the end of the day, because now you've got a unique product that's on the market, as opposed to what I think, we're seeing is this crush of affordability and everything else, just this increase of development. There are going to be certain people in the market that are going to want property that has all of this open space to look at. So there are a lot of ways to kind of run the numbers, I think, and work with various different partners to come together. We've seen some really interesting partnerships with, landowners, a landowning family, and also with developers. So I think there's lots of opportunities, and obviously that kind of gets you out of the political issue that we know that a lot of communities are facing. You see the same thing in Heber with their TDR program. Nobody wants it in their backyard.
No, and I think there's no question about it. Everybody would prefer to have an open space, a farm in back of their
Yeah.
backyard versus condos.
Yeah.
And they're willing to pay more for that, because then they complain about it if all of a sudden that landowner sells it. But
Yeah.
if if they know that that would exist for as long as they were in the home, the value of those lots go up substantially. It's about like being on a golf course. It's like being next to, federal ground, state ground.
Yeah.
You're pretty well protected with your backyard.
Yeah.
Everybody wants a good, safe backyard that they can walk their dogs on or take their horses on.
Yeah.
Sure.
I will never forget a developer saying to me, the great thing about doing a conservation easement with a farmer and incorporating that next to your development is then you don't have to pay for installing the entire golf course. And you get the same,
You get the same
increased value
yep.
of benefit. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Because 80% of the people that live next to the golf courses actually don't golf.
No,
They're there because it's an open space.
that's very true. Is that right?
That is true.
Yeah,
Yep.
I've heard that.
They just catch golf balls.
Yeah.
They're not even interested in catching golf balls. They are there because they know it's basically kind of a semi-protected open space, and that's why they're willing to pay more. So,
So if it's okay, Wendy, I'll be in touch. I'd
Yes.
like to have that, I like the idea of the advisory board. It's kind of like we did with the weed board when we set that up a few years ago. That weed board just gone off the charts with what they've been able to accomplish. And I see this doing the same thing. Probably not to the extent of weed board, but the same concept.
well, and then you have people that are invested in their
Yeah.
local community, and this is a way that they can make the difference, right? Don't want it in my backyard. Here's a way to be productive and
Yeah.
actually move things forward. So, I think you might be surprised at how many people would be really interested in participating in something like that. And then, I'm going this Wednesday to the Midway Open Space Advisory Committee. So we're there, with that group, as kind of we're not even ex officio, we just come and provide resources and information, and any project that we have, we take it through that committee first, and then they take all the projects and they make the recommendations to the city
Yeah.
council.
I like it a lot. Anything else?
Just,
Hey, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.
Good seeing you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, I know, it has. It's been a while. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
We'll be in touch. Good to see you.
Yeah, appreciate
We'll be in
your
touch.
time.
Great, good seeing you again,
Thanks.
as always.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Jim.
man, I had a moment there, Gage.
What was your moment?
Couldn't stay awake.
What happened to you?
Oh, so tired.
You must not have slept last night. Situation of our work. Video going.
Motion to cease to saunter.
Second,
All those in favor?
I,
Aye, motion carries. We're now at our 3 p.m. discussion regarding the general fund deputies. We have commissioners here, Commissioner Floor, Commissioner Harvey to my right, Commissioner Bolus to my left. We have Sheriff Arbon with us. And just to make sure everybody knows the people in the room, I'm gonna start with Chief Guard over here and have him, and we'll introduce, make sure everybody knows who else is in the room. So Chief?
Josh Guard, Chief Deputy of the Enforcement Division at the Sheriff's Office.
Braden Mitchell, Mayor of Riverdale City. Bob Vanderwood, Mayor of West Haven City.
This time, Mayor at Slaterville.
Stetson Talbot, Chief of Police of Pleasantview.
Steve Gibson, Mayor of Pleasantview.
Mark Allen, Mayor of Washington Terrace.
Matthew Gwynn, Chief of Police for a city. I was asked to be here by Mayor Jackson.
Stephanie Ebert with the Weaver County Clerk Auditor's Office.
I'm on, I've got to do my Chief. I'm Roy City Police.
I'm Brad Slater. I'm with the Mayor of Slaterville City Council.
Mike Thomas from Washington Terrace City Council. Casey Warren, Chief of Police for Riverdale City.
Darren Park, South Ogden Police Chief.
Summer Palmer, Assistant City Manager for South Ogden.
Tom Hanson, City Manager, Washington Terrace. John Ward, West Haven City Manager.
Great. Did I miss anybody? Cortland?
Young lady.
Oh,
Cortland Erickson, I'm a Deputy County Attorney here.
Sherry Bingham, Mayor of Hooper City.
okay, I don't think we missed anybody. So appreciate the great turnout for this work session. So we're here. I think everybody understands the purpose, the intent of this meeting. So just a refresher for those that may not know, back in June of 2025, coming up a year ago, we had a work session with basically this same group, other than there might have been different people at that, obviously different mayors. And the issue that was brought to us that really made that meeting possible, or the start of that meeting, was that we had some communication from certain cities that had their own police departments that were concerned with the allocation of what we were taking out of the general fund in terms of deputies that were going then to contract cities, the allocation of the deputies from the general fund. So we actually instituted I don't see our auditor here. So we promised at that time that we would do some research, put forth an audit to come up with information that we could use in justifying one way or the other what that number was. And if you remember when we met back in 2025, that number was 32. So 32 positions were actually paid in the general fund in the way of deputies. So we had our auditor look at that number in the interest of saying, let's be fair between that allocation between the general fund cities, treating the cities that have their own police departments versus those that were contract cities. And that allocation needs to be fair. So I come from kind of the background that says, if you have services, you should pay for them. If you don't, then don't do the services, but don't require another entity to pay those. We went through that same scenario back, was it been 3 or 4 years ago, when we got notified by the state that the general fund in Weber County was actually subsidizing to some extent municipal service. So we actually then increased the municipal service tax, which 2 of us in the room then paid that increase. The rest of the county got a decrease, but that's a fair allocation, and under state code, it's very clear that general fund cannot subsidize other type of departments or their agencies. So to make a long story short, we had our internal auditor look at those numbers. Is it 23, is it 32, or is it somewhere in between? The number that she presented to us, that then we acted on, that she felt that 23 was the valid number right now, that she could justify in her report without a question 23. Now, is that the final number? Have we come to a absolute conclusion on that? No, we've asked the sheriff to come up with some boundaries in place that he could justify where those deputies are at any given time. But as a commission, we looked at that and said, okay, do we stay with the number 23? Do we go to 32? Where do we go? We felt that a compromise was in the best interest of both the contract cities and the cities that have those police departments. So we arrived at the number of 28. So the number that we are using today in the budget would be 28 deputies that would be paid out of the general fund, not 23, not 32. So it's an increase of 5 by my calculation that would increase. Now, I'm gonna ask Stephanie, you have, is your computer up and going?
Yep.
I'm gonna ask Stephanie, since she's the finance guru and she's familiar with all these numbers, to show what the impact of that would be in the end of the day to the contract cities. Obviously, it would be a decrease in some extent. I don't know what that decrease would be to those cities that have their own police departments, but it would be a shift to the contract cities. Now, I want to be clear, it's been said or it's been suggested that we're cutting deputies. That's not what this does. It's basically a shift. The deputies stay the same, but the contract cities would be responsible to pay 5 of those positions that they're not paying for now. Now, I'm gonna have Steph explain how the numbers work out before you start putting any numbers together, so she can fully explain what the outcome of that would be.
A couple of things to
Yeah.
her for, if you don't mind,
Go
while
ahead.
she's setting up there. One thing that I will add about the audit is that Kaylee is our internal auditor. Some of you met her when we met with a smaller group a few months after the big group meeting. She said 23 is what is where she arrived and wanted additional data to see if that number should increase. So that's why we've tasked the sheriff and his team to get additional data. That's why we didn't want to go down to the 23 initially, because she did say that she wanted more data for that. And also, you'll remember, I was the chair at the time when we had our initial meeting, and that was to the cities who have their own police departments, that this wouldn't necessarily result in a decrease to those taxes, but would rather allow us to continue to fund our rising costs without a tax increase. So, that wasn't the catalyst for this, but that's something that we disclosed last year, so I think you all probably will remember that, so.
Yeah.
Just a couple of clarifications.
No, I think that's, so this is, yeah, and I think the sheriff will bring this up, but we have asked for additional information over the next year. So if that 28 becomes higher, becomes lower, we have some substantial data, verifiable data that we can use to adjust that number. Commissioner Harvey, do you have anything before we move to Stephanie?
That's what I was just gonna cover.
Okay, Stephanie, go ahead.
Okay, so what I have on the screen here, in the column, B is where the contract cities are at today. We've got 32.
Can you hold that up, Steph, make them bigger so it's easier to see for old people like me. There you go, thank you.
Okay, so 32 general fund deputies and a total of 78. And that's column B again is the 2025-26 tax year. Up over in column C is what we anticipate for the 26-27 tax year for the cities. There's a bit of an increase because of our compensation study that we did. The sheriff's office has proposed an increase of 10 deputies for the contract cities that was distributed to them back in February, I believe. And so that would be what was given to the contract cities back then, leaving that at 32 general fund deputies and a total of 88 total deputies for the sheriff's office. And then what we're proposing with this number 28 with 88 total deputies and what that would do to the contract cities there in column E. I can scroll down a little bit so those cities can see what their new amounts would be.
Good, we don't have one. We're not increasing. Mary Sladeville.
You're line 32.
MSL, sorry.
Oh, okay.
32, yeah.
That'd be a great deal.
Yeah. Can we get a copy of this too, please? Thank you.
So do you want to talk about the school resource officer contribution
Right.
that,
Yes, so.
how we came about at that, and make sure we understand that's the first, this was the first year that
Yeah, so.
fund source has become available?
Yeah, in the original 2025-26 budget, which is the year that we're in right now. The former comptroller and Julie Stoddard from the sheriff's office had discussed. At the initial allocation to the city billings. Would leave out that school resource officer contract from Weaver School District. And that would be caught up in the true up that they do at the end of the year when they review the budget to actual. And so what we're anticipating is we're going to those columns, the amount that's showing in column E shifts that school resource officer contract with the school district to the contract cities as the initial contract amount rather than at the true up part. Because then that would actually allocate that school district contract where we feel it belongs. Because most of those, well, all of the contract deputies, all of the contract cities are the ones that should be the recipients of those school district dollars because the schools are in the contract cities. So that allocation went to the contract cities in this column E.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna ask you, but someone like Chief Gwen could probably answer that. So
Okay.
there's a high school university and a couple of junior highs. You guys pay for those resource officers and are you directly reimbursed by the school district?
We are, yeah, we build the school district, I think it's, I don't know how many times, but it's per the school year, and so we do
Right.
build the school district for those officers, yes.
So then the ones that the county gets that for really are those that are in contract cities.
Right.
That makes sense, everybody. Yeah, that's good clarification. Thank you, Matt. So Stephanie, tell us what that number is then that would be contributed back to that, or is contribute under this.
For the current school district contract we have coming up is $765,000 for the year. That I believe represents, correct me if you that know, I think it's about 70% of 70%.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, so.
Which is about half.
The agencies, I think, are paying 51%, the school
Right.
district's paying 49%.
Okay, so what does that mean then in terms of those 5 positions with that contribution of the school resource officers? What's the delta then that would be passed on to this contract cities, dollar wise? Just total, then they can figure, every city would obviously be a little different.
So
I
I'm
think
sorry.
looking at line 26.
Yeah.
Stuff. Describing the difference between
Okay.
D and E.
Yeah, there we go, 26.
So it's actually very close to the number that was distributed back in the meeting in February with the 32 down to the 28 general fund deputies.
Right. So I think that's the important number to look at. The number that you were quoted back in February was the 10, go back
Sorry.
up a little. Is that the 10,000,000?
10.6.
608?
Mhm.
And with this adjustment with the 28 and contributing back this
The school
school
district.
resource officers, it's the 10,000,006. So it's, you can see it's not a huge impact to your budgets for this year. And I think, and that's one of the reasons we looked at making sure that school resource officer fund went back to the contract cities.
We appreciate that. Thank you, Gary.
Questions?
Well, I appreciate it, because with us providing SROs in those contract cities, I appreciate that you guys are lining that up with the cost center. Thank you.
Well, we just think it's a proper allocation to the contract cities. At the same time, we think it's a fair allocation to those cities that have their own police department. So again, and I think I'm gonna let the sheriff take a second here, but this has to be given with the idea that a year from now, the information will be more detailed, it'll be complete, and the numbers at that point in time, I think it's clear, at least from the commission, that could go up, it could go down. But until we have that definite information, it's gonna have to Casey
Moore, sorry.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify, so do I understand it? The cities that have their own police departments are gonna, our county taxes, our residents are gonna see a reduction of 5 deputies based upon these new numbers. And then contract cities are gonna receive basically an increase of 5 deputies, but it's gonna be offset by the school district funding, because it's gonna be allocated to them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the residents in Riverdale, Ogden, South Ogden, Roy should see a reduction to some sort for our taxes for our services for the sheriff's department.
Well, for the sheriff's department part,
Yes,
but there won't be a tax reduction
gotcha.
on their bill. Like that will just be reallocated to the general fund. There's additional countywide asks that the sheriff has that we'll consider as well, but.
Yeah, we won't see a reduction, but it will be redistributed.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not that when they get their tax notice, there won't be
We're not seeing a discount.
there won't be a 50% or 50-cent discount, but it'll be an allocation based upon what comes out of the sheriff's department, yeah.
And part of the reason is the sheriff has identified needs in the general fund that were in years past cut from the general fund that he'd like us to reconsider. And so that's why we don't want
Gotcha.
to reduce that and prematurely.
But if it stayed the same in the future, then there could be something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how it works on the financial side.
Darren Park, South Ogden Police. You mentioned the state notified the county that they couldn't use the general funds for, contract city.
No, so this goes back when we were the municipal service, which is basically the unincorporated portion of Weaver County. They found out that some of our funding for the municipal service for the unincorporated was being paid out of general fund. So our friend John Dougal, the auditor, actually made a call and said, you need to correct that, which we did. So we ended up increasing municipal service tax. Now, this was on the tax notice. And then at that point in time, there was a decrease. I'm not thought we're gonna see that decrease in the general fund tax.
So, may I, basically, people who lived in unincorporated, the people who lived in all the cities were paying a portion of the people who lived in unincorporated's tax. And so we changed that, which negatively affects Gage and I, because we live in unincorporated. Our property tax and unincorporated on that line item doubled. But to the cities, you all got that adjustment. The net take that the county had was the same. But what that did is it solved a decades and decade old problem where the cities, the people who lived in cities were paying a portion of the unincorporated tax, property tax, and it wasn't right and it wasn't fair. And so we've made that correction. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago.
And Chief, that was not just for police services.
No,
It was all the services that unincorporated receives.
It's our municipal services fund, or it's like the city that we run, unincorporated, the city.
It'd be like subsidizing a city tax. So that was our city tax for unincorporated.
That's it.
So 2 parts. Did they have a recommendation on the number of positions?
Yes.
At that point, and when the in-house auditor is saying they needed additional data, would the state auditor be the source for that data?
I said yes to her.
You're talking about the number of deputies? No, that all came from from our internal auditor here, as Commissioner Bowe said, Kaylee is our internal auditor. And the idea going forward is to ask the sheriff department to do more detailed analysis. There's some programs in place that they actually can track the location, look at time. It's a, I'm gonna say it's a fairly complex situation, but where are those officers spending their time? What type of calls, so that we have information going forward. Are those deputies in Ogden City? Are they in South Ogden? Or are they in a city, or are they in an unincorporated? So, because Weaver County still has an unincorporated portion that we pay our share for.
Commissioner, I'm just trying to clarify or get certain on what role I'm playing here or participating with, because I run a police department. I know what I need, and I try to convince my council. If we go back and forth, we have those discussions. The sheriff runs the sheriff's department. he runs with the commission, you guys have back and forth conversations to settle that, but the other element that you guys have that I don't are the contract sides. So in my mind, what it's coming down to is, looking at those numbers, 10 million is a lot of money, but when we look at the service population, we have 18,000 people in South Ogden. My budget, depending on capital, could be up to over $5 million. So when I think about West and the growth out there, I'm looking at those numbers of $10 million saying, how are you paying for that stuff with those contracts? But again, that's the sheriff's role. I run a police department, he runs the sheriff's office. So.
Well, I think that question is one of the exact reasons we started this process, and so that we could justify to ourselves, is that a valid number? Should the contract cities be paying more? And less of that burden being placed on your individual department. And that's what we-
If 5 of the deputies are shifting to contract cities, right, the burden,
The
expense.
burden is.
Expense, why is that not coming back to the cities and the county taxes? Does that make sense? We're still paying the same amount, we're still getting the same service, but yet they're gonna pay more. Does that make sense?
It does,
Like, we should be getting something back, a reduction for the cities that have their own PDs.
and you could, but, because we're still collecting data and we have to.
So
have to have
we're
it
just
for a few-
holding to figure out exactly what.
Yes, and I would like to see it go for a few years. I know the last time that this was 2017 staff, that had this conversation, so it's been it's been 9 years since it was done before. If we're gonna wait that long, which I think it's a little too long, then I think we need a couple of years of data to back that up.
This represents a phased approach. And at least we're doing something, especially for those cities that have police departments in them, but we're also. We're getting better because our sheriff's department they have more data, they have more information, and thanks to their call and need, we've been able to get him. Well, he's been able to get himself staffed where he needs to be too, so we can do this a little more accurate.
I don't know if this doesn't like me to say, but I'm a resident of contract cities, I don't like to mix the two. But, the sheriff's department definitely needs more staffing out west. You know, if you look at the 79, how many deputies they got, 79,000 in the contract cities, there's only 82 deputies, that's less than 1 per thousand for the contract cities. What about the rest of us? Every other police department has well over 1 to 2 officers per thousand. If we were to minus off the 22 or 23, whatever's allocated to us, that would put them well below the national standard for all those cities out west. You can look anywhere in the state, they're staffed at a lower rate, which means those city deputies, the countywide deputies, are being pulled to subsidize some contract cities because they couldn't operate without the countywide deputies. You know, and I think it's not, Sheriff Arbin's trying to do the best he can with the resources he has. We all mutually aid each other. Roy helps us, you help Roy, same with South Ogden City, and as well as the county. But I think the bigger ticket item here is the allocation. Like there's the sheriff's department, but a lot of those countywide resources are being used at all the contract cities. And if they weren't, they wouldn't have, the officers would be in danger. They wouldn't have the tools, the resources they need. And I don't think it's fair to the deputies that are working on it.
Can I respond to
Go
that?
ahead.
Can I just follow up on
So-
that? So I want to go back to the cost shifting for just a second, because you all know that there's just been there's been this conflict as it relates to law enforcement salaries, and Weaver County is not immune from what's going on in Davis and Solid County.
Yeah.
Right. And right now, like 3 years, it was barely 3 years ago, 4 years ago, Roy was #1 for wages. We're now dead last in the county. Congratulations, Ryan. Right? Our entry rate is 20% below market value. Now, if I'm hearing this wrong, please correct me, but what I heard was there is going to be a cost shift. Roy City, and I'm here representing the mayor right now. Roy City could potentially see a savings, or should be seeing a savings, that they could use towards their municipal law enforcement, but they're not going to get that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mhm.
Okay. I just
They're
wanna
not
make
gonna get that on year one.
They're not gonna get that this year.
Yeah.
sure. Okay,
Down the road.
that's fine. So after, how many years?
So
are we-
what that shift would look like is a reduction on the county, then of course an increase in Roy City.
Okay, so that is
Because it's
the
not money that
plan.
we're changing hands with Roy.
Okay.
Right? It's money to the taxpayer.
Okay, so they will see it
Includes
eventually.
Collective item.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I think we're not going to look at this as, we're gonna solve this in year one. We need definite data, and we've just had numerous discussions as far as what that data may look like. And that we're not trying to preload what that data is. We want to see the information, we want to make decisions, but at the end of the day, what I want to see happen is that shift then that goes to is the allocation. Should the contract cities pay more? Do the contract cities need more deputies? Absolutely. But then who should pay for them? Should that go back to the departments that have it, or should that be borne by the contract cities? My feeling is whoever has that service should pay for it. And which means that if things come together, we have the information we need to make decisions in the future, that will be exactly what happens. But it's not gonna happen in year one.
No, I appreciate the clarification. Thanks.
And Chief, to your point, the sheriff, when we adopted our budget this year, the sheriff had asked for 10 additional deputies just for the contract cities. We didn't include it in our budget, but promised him that when he was fully staffed, we would amend our budget. And you're almost fully staffed. We're having that conversation with the contract cities right now. So to your point of officer safety.
Commissioner, can I address that?
Yeah.
Seeing as how I'm the subject matter expert on that. So everybody in the room knows we have been short-staffed, and the way the enforcement division has ran for the last 3.5 years that I've been over it. If we're not fully staffed, general fund duties don't get fulfilled. So our contracts get fulfilled first. So there's no mixing of county resources or anything like that. An example, last summer in the valley, we had to reduce the amount of boat deputies on the water, reduce the amount of hours on the water because we weren't fully staffed, which affects, those are general fund duties up there. Forest Service, we've reduced our Forest Service shifts, partly because of money coming in from the Forest Service, the federal government. The other part is we don't have funding. So this mixing stuff that everybody's worried about, it doesn't happen. And to Commissioner Harvey's point that I don't think everybody heard, as we move forward to get this data, I've already been in talks with my command staff about drawing hard lines. So the reduction is you're gonna have 5 less general fund deputies to do general fund duties until we figure out what that number is. But the contract cities will be covered at full staff when we're full staffed. If we go below our 88, if we get 88, then that shortage will fall on the general fund side and not the contract side. Same, we treat it the same as with the school district. We don't have an officer here at the Weaver Center right now because we were short on SRO, so we had to pull him and put him in a school. So that's how I operate the enforcement division.
Yeah, I did. I just, and I think Commissioner Bullock's answered a little bit. The purpose of this meeting isn't to solve all of the municipal services fund questions.
No, absolutely not.
If the purpose of this meeting today is to discuss law enforcement. Okay.
Contract, basically deputy, the number we've used before was 32. The number we're putting into effect this year is 28.
So we're not gonna delve into the weeds as far as what city can benefit from a reduction of county taxes versus any of these kinds of numbers.
Not right now. Now, hopefully in a year or so, you'll be able to go to your residents. With the police department and see, because the allocation has been changed, you'll see, it won't be very big, $2 discount on your tax bill. By then it'll be probably less than that, but yeah.
And Mr. Cortland, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name from the county attorney's department. But I was wondering, has there been any recent legislation to change county responsibilities for county-wide services that has happened?
Well, not that I'm aware of. I'm not really an expert in that question, but are you talking about law enforcement specifically? Or are you talking about the allocation of funds from municipal services?
Yeah, because there is some statutory responsibility for the sheriff's office to have, and I use that term office because we're not talking about a department, because the county attorney's office is an office as well. And there is a distinct difference, is there not? I look at the legislative people in here with former legislative experience. What's that?
One is elected.
Yeah, one is they're elected versus. So Anyway,
I'm not aware of any changes.
I've taken a long way to ask this question, but I just wonder if there's been a change to any of those statutory requirements that the sheriff is obligated, regardless of how many police departments we have in this county. And whether we were all wall-to-wall police departments, has there been any change in the responsibility of the sheriff to have the sufficient staff to meet his statutory responsibility?
The only change was an addition to general fund, and that was the county security chief.
Okay.
Right. The school
I've
research.
been out of touch since 2014, so I apologize.
Yeah, Representative Wilcox is Bill dealing with that.
I had to
Thank
ask a
you.
question online, so.
Oh, Matt, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, you had a question.
Well, just to the representative from the sheriff's office that was talking about the 5 general fund deputies. I don't know that, I guess my question is, did any of the cities feel an impact of that? And at what point, I mean, in my mind, could we lose 5 more general fund deputies? And will the residents of South Ogden feel that?
Get rid of that. Did you hear his question?
Yeah, he wants to know if the residents of the cities with the police departments will feel the impact of shifting those deputies.
So I think he was responding here where this sheriff's department has not been fully staffed. And all of those positions or those functions have been moved to the contract cities in order to fulfill the contract obligations. Have any of the non-contract cities really felt that impact of not having the services that those people would have otherwise been providing? And if they haven't, then is that then is that does that furthermore make the point that we don't need those services coming from the general fund?
How do you
If
quantify
South
that?
Ogden hasn't been missing that much, those officers who have not had their positions, or those officers who have been moved to fill contractors, city obligations, then do we need them in our cities to start with? And if the answer is no, if no other city has felt that loss of service, then should we recognize that and say, okay, then really, maybe it is 23, not 28, those 5 officers we didn't need from the general fund. And I don't know the answer to that, but if no other city here can say, yeah, I really missed that service, then maybe that helps with that analysis.
Some of that be contract and non-contract missing, like contract cities felt the difference when they were understaffed. Is
Right.
that what you're asking?
Well, what he said was, in order to fill the contracts for the contract cities, the services were pulled from the general fund and moved to the contract cities. So for those non-contract cities who therefore did not get those services, did we miss it? Did Roy miss it? Did Riverdale miss it? And if you didn't miss it, then why should we keep paying for it?
So how would you quantify that? If they're busy with other calls, you guys get a call coming, you'd have to coordinate the time response that Weaver County sheriffs could have got there with when they're busy. To quantify that's almost impossible without a ton of data
I'm
to
just saying,
say,
we have a department, so we don't call them.
You do.
okay, but 911 gets a call, they show up. If they're not able to respond, yeah, your deputies, your police department's gonna still respond, but these guys could have got there quicker if they'd have had the staffing. That's what I'm saying. It's tough to quantify. You'd have to look at all the data and say, when we made this call, so-and-so It took 10 minutes for our police to get there. Weaver County said we were busy. If we hadn't been busy, we could have got there in a better amount of time. So I don't buy that to where, unless there's a lot of hard data to show that you don't, we all feel it when some, asset is pulled away from us. You may not realize it right then, but if they would have been there, you would have had quicker responses in a lot of cases. That's what I just look at.
Well, I'm just saying, if my residents had a 10-minute delay, they're not gonna go to the county and demand more service. They're gonna go to him and demand more service. And when he gets the demand for more service, then our city council has to ante up for that. Not the county.
I got that. You're gonna get that from your residents, but they may have been able to put the fire out by having a deputy respond if they hadn't been busy, out of the general fund.
But so will mine have.
So, Summer, that's the exact question that drove this whole discussion.
Right.
That's really why we brought everybody together and started this. So I'm gonna have to go to Commissioner Bolos.
So to your point, with the understaffing, that's why we're looking now at data going forward, because they are
Yeah.
fully staffed. So all those numbers, if the sheriff's office operates business as usual, then once we gather that data, we'll know, because they'll be fully staffed, right?
That's a good point.
And, right, you weren't here last year when we started this.
No, ma'am.
But, and a lot, yes, several of you weren't, but we said on the outset, this is not a conversation about mutual aid. So we get that, but I think and I know I'm gonna say fully staffed, and I know you're not. But when the sheriff's office is fully staffed, then that line should be delineated a lot easier. So I think your question's maybe not rhetorical, but maybe consider this. And I think that's what we are considering.
We have been in all of your cities. We have been. General fund has been in all of your cities. There was an officer involved shooting in Roy. We had a lot of general fund deputies out there. We sent our bomb dog out there to find the gun. Casey, we've been in your city, I don't know how many times.
We did
South
run-
Ogden's homicide case recently, general fund deputies, including our MRAP, was up there. So to measure the impact, if all general fund deputies went away, I believe non-contract cities would feel that impact. Ogden has requested us several times with their recent protests to be staffed and ready to go handle calls if their city gets overrun. Those are not contract deputies. When that call is made, they're not contract deputies. We have 3 active investigations being handled by investigations at the request of OPD right now. So general fund is getting used, not to the extent that it can be utilized because we have been short-staffed, but general fund is being used. And I'm excited to get the contract side up and running so that we can offer more general fund services. And general fund just isn't helping in your cities. General fund is the fair. General fund is the Ogden Marathon. Those are not contract deputy services that the contract cities provide for the marathon. So there is a nexus, there is a need for general fund. That number, we're still trying to figure that out. I don't have the data to support a number higher or lower because we just found out last week.
So I don't think there's discussion on whether we need general fund deputies or not. It's the number that.
Exactly.
It's a number.
It's that number.
Mutual aid,
How much short general?
and if you were to pull Riverdale's numbers for when we are in, say, a contract city like the Terrace or West Haven, it's 2 to 1. If Roy was to pull their numbers when they go into a contract city versus when the sheriff's department comes into theirs, it's probably also, I'm assuming, higher. And so we're talking, a lot of these scenarios we're talking about are mutual aid. And so if we're talking mutual aid, yeah, we aid just as much, if not more than anybody, whether any contract city. There are those specialized things that we're talking about, like bomb dogs. Search and rescue's been great. They've been in our city. They've helped us out quite a bit. Those are those specialty assignments we're talking about that are necessary for the sheriff's department. But as far as just coming back and forth and back and we mutual, yeah, we go to the Terrace 2 to 1, you know.
Casey, can you define mutual aid?
What do you mean?
Just
Just
like
if you
the
need,
definition of mutual aid.
well, you guys are tied up and don't have an officer respond, we respond to back in.
When does it
Well, vice
become not mutual aid? At some point, does it become not mutual aid and something more than that, like a general fund duty?
Well, I guess that depends on which way you're looking at it.
I think specialty things like you're talking about would.
That specialty
So it's
stuff-
a sustained call. Mutual aid is I can leave the city, go back to another agency and returning that city to handle my own calls within a reasonable amount of time.
Sure.
Where it becomes not mutual aid, in my definition, and this is just me, is if it's a sustained call.
And
Which
we have
means,
those
which
in
means
all
I can't get back to my city to
Yeah.
handle the calls for service in my city. To me, that's not mutual aid.
We
So
do,
those scenarios I've discussed going into your cities, to me, is not mutual aid.
Okay, do we have a question? So I think that's really the heart of this discussion. I think we'd agree. That's why we need more data.
Correct.
That's why we have to have that hard line. So that a year from now, when the people sitting in this room can sit here and say, Chief Guard, Sheriff, here's what the exact data has shown based upon putting these systems in place so that we can verify what that number is. And I don't think there's any preconceived notion right now on the commission that that should either go up or down. I think we're saying, let's see the data. Let's make sure that data is accurate. And we've asked the sheriff to provide that. So, Tyler Ziegler, did you have a question?
Yeah, just real quick, I'm here on behalf of Mayor Nadolski. It sounds like we've discussed a lot of my question. My first is, this is two-part based on the answer to this one. We talked about the 23 number that was on your internal audit. Do we we have access to what that looked like or what the data was to get to that 23 minimum? Am I understanding that correctly?
That report hasn't been released yet, but she's tying up the loose ends on that and it'll be released. And it will also include her statement that she's looking for more data.
So, yeah, I just was curious how we got to the 23 number. But we had enough data for that number, but we don't have enough data for what that looks like on the general fund. That just is a little confusing.
That's a question for Kaylee.
You want me to take that?
Yeah, take it. Go ahead.
So in 2017, Tyler or Mr. Ziegler, when we all were in this room, and there were some here with us. We put all those numbers together and we arrived between the contracted cities and the other cities at the number of 32. There was some disagreements back then, especially out of North Ogden, that I remember, but it was recently we decided to look at that number again, and a year ago, we committed to all of you, to all the cities, all 15 at the time, 16 now, that we would look at that number again. Through the internal audit is what's made that decision. Going back to your direct question, the suggestion was at 23, but there wasn't sufficient data that existed. We were told there wasn't enough sufficient data, we were told, to hardline at 23. And that's why we decided to take a phased approach and not go from 32 to 23, but to take it in steps. And then that will allow the sheriff and the chief to be able to get more data so that we can take a look at that number again in a year from now to see if 28 is the right number, or does it go to 29 or 30, or does it go to 27, 26, 23? We won't know that until the data comes back from Chief Guard and his folks there and the sheriff. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I appreciate the context there. I just the disconnect is if we obviously had enough data to get to the 23 and we were confident enough in that. I just didn't know if we don't have enough data to project beyond that, how many general fund employees we need to have. I don't know how we're arriving at 23.
Sure. So that'll come out in the report. Yeah. You know, we could have easily gone to 27, but the difference is 9, and we decided to advantage the contract cities by only reducing it to 4 instead of going 5. So there could have been another cut there, but we decided that will advantage the cities that we have on now, because I'm guessing that they will need the contract cities at some future point. When the sheriff's been talking, I know he's been diligent, had several meetings with the contract cities over the year so that we could address that number. I think Casey, you were the one that brought up the point where we need more help out west. The number that we've been told in this room is that our sheriff's department is about 0.5 something per thousand. 0.57 per thousand, and by being fully staffed, still at the 88 that's projected, it takes it up to 0.8 something per thousand. So whatever that number is, we're moving in the right direction to get there. Are we at 1 or 1.5 or 2 like some of your other cities? No. But we're at least, what we're trying to do is at least move it in the right direction. Have a starting point. Move the responsibility of payment in the right direction, have a starting point. These are hard conversations to have, but we've got to start somewhere. And I want to be particularly, I want to commend Commissioner Bolos on really, and Sheriff Arbon taking this on and doing it for the right reason. It was a hard conversation when we had to double our taxes. And every neighbor in my cul-de-sac had to double their taxes. There's the widows, 2 of them, and everybody else on that line item. But it wasn't right that every city was paying a portion of our taxes because the previous commission to us wouldn't address it. Wasn't right. It wasn't lawful. So we do hard things. We may stumble around and be a little clumsy how we get there. We're trying to do the right thing for the right reason. And that's why we're here. We want to do this again. We will do this again in 6 months or a year. Because that number's going to change, and that number's going to always change as we continue to grow out west. We've entitled 40,000 new people eventually in the next 10 years out west. It's going to continue to change, but we're trying to do the right things for the right reason. I believe we are doing the right things for the right reasons. We just have to take it in business or steps. Sorry, thank you.
I agree. Go ahead.
Go ahead. And I'm new, apologize, so I'm just catching up. I'm looking at this report with the 23 and, where they're search and rescue, internal crimes against children, strike force. I'd like to know how many were in each category before, with the 32, if that's the number. And where we're gonna add for the 28, where are those gonna go in this area? I'm all for the contract cities paying their fair share. I think that's fair. I mean, we pay for our police department. We're proud. It's our biggest budget item.
Yeah.
For us. So I'm for that, but where's this data? And how did she get to the 23? And I think we've talked about that a little bit. Where is that? And I'd like to hear from the sheriff here for a minute, just to give him an opportunity to say his plea for this, because this 23 affects me as Pleasant View. That's what we're counting on, those things. We send our police to Far West, we send them to North Ogden. North Ogden comes to us. We have that interlocal agreement that we take care of each other. And I don't know if we use the sheriff too much. I'll probably do. I mean, we use them in some of the task force for sure. They came into our city with the drones and the big thing just for something just a couple weeks ago, which we're very thankful for. We don't know when we need that. So it has to be there. But I do hope, and my brother over here in the terrace, he needs to pay for what he does. And so I appreciate the commissioners doing that. And that's gonna stink for Washington Terrace, because they might have to raise that a little bit to pay their fair share. But the data on, pushing out from the 32 to 23, which, that's on this report. Where's that? And you just go to 28. So what is the data you say, okay, we want to go halfway in the middle, which is great. Because whoever your auditor or whatever did 23, how'd you get to that? I've not heard that.
Well, let me explain.
The 28 goes or 32. I mean, where is that comfortable? And if the contract cities need to be, if the contract cities need to have, I think they should pay their fair share. I'm not arguing that. I do not want to give any of my money. And to share it at the Commissioner Bolos, we're not gonna have a tax decrease because if we did, the sheriff wants some more stuff. We're just moving that money instead of having a tax increase. I get that.
So we're not benefiting anything from it.
Other than
Other than-
additional positions that would benefit. the
But it
whole
will,
county.
yes, but it will benefit the county, or we'll have to have a tax increase.
Or other general fund things, right?
Or
Like
have to go away, yes, I get that. So we're not just seeing a benefit of a decrease, but we're not seeing an increase either, which we're reallocating those funds and hopefully getting some more money from the contract cities. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's a reallocation. I mean, that's what it is. It's a shift. To answer your question, her directions for the audit were start with 0 and then build it from there. Tell us exactly.
And was that, did the sheriff put in on input on that, or was that just what made her come to this 23?
Well, because we asked, tell us what's being provided.
And did the sheriff have input on that?
Well, yeah, he met with Callie, and now I know he had input. I can't say that he directed the audit, but he had input.
Anyway, but I would, at some point today, hopefully we can hear
Yeah,
from Sheriff Arbuthnot.
So, Mayor, did you have a question?
That was gonna be my question, or my brother here started, but I
didn't-
agree with him.
Congratulations, I know your brother.
Yeah.
I respect that you.
He said he was new and I'm damn old, so we'll go with that.
How do you think that's colored your hair?
My question was, I got a daughter, who does a great job. Internal audit was there any input from law enforcement at all? Was there enough? Cause I'm with here, where did we pick that 23 number? And now we build up.
Yeah, why don't we,
I just don't understand.
Going down to 23, then building up, why don't you stay at 32, get your information, do all your audit, whatever you're gonna do. And then decide from 32 down instead of.
We actually started at 0 and then.
Started at 0.
Sheriff's the one who.
So Sheriff, I'm gonna go to you to answer those questions since you can say whether you had input or not.
Gage, I'm new to this conversation as well. I mean, I've been chief for 5 years, but I'm new to this conversation. Ordinarily, the mayor would be here, but to Chief Ziegler's point and to Stetson's, right? We started this number to 32, and now we've got a report that says 23. And I actually wrote this down at the beginning of the meeting. Now we're quote increasing to 28 or discussion quote increasing to 28, which is actually a decrease from the 32. So it's nuanced, right? What does mutual aid look like? Okay, are we talking about an increase? Are we talking about a decrease? Because we're talking about a decrease, but we're also talking about so we're going back and forth. I think we need to pick one or the other so that we all are on the same page as to whether or not we're talking about a decrease from 32 or an increase from 23, even though they're the same thing. I think I'd like to pick one and stick with it because that can cause some confusion. Does that make sense?
No.
But if that number comes down, I mean, it really comes, when everything falls out, are the contract cities gonna have to pay more? Isn't that where we're shifting that funding for that? The contract cities will pay more? And you said earlier that we're not losing deputies, we're just shifting who pays for them, right?
That's correct.
Because to Chief Guard's point, they've been doing those duties.
Right.
And neglecting the general fund duties.
But are the contract cities, do they have to pay their share then for that? That's, I think, isn't that the issue really here is who pays for those? If we're not getting rid of them, if we're shifting those 5, whatever, to the contract cities that are under, what is it, 0.5, then it's gonna be 0.75 or whatever.
0.57 to 0.72.
0.72 per thousand.
Per thousand of contract cities?
Yes.
Or
Contract only.
Okay,
Contract.
thank you.
And that's still under, in my opinion, it should be, I don't know, what are we? 1.3 or
There's
something.
nobody less than 1,000 per thousand,
So-
about 1.3.
so-
I
so
think
if-
Ogden goes to 2.
So if it's 1 to 1,000, that should be minimum. Then what do you do with the contract city then at that point? Because they have to pay, they should pay for that if they want that coverage.
Agreed.
And is that part of what, anyway, let you.
Yeah. Sheriff, let's go to you.
Okay. To be very clear and candid, the decision of potentially going to 23 or 28 is purely hunch and opinion. There's no data driving this, none at all. Be very clear. Okay. So you guys, we can get into campaign slogans, but there is a plan that was put in forth by the sheriff's office to address this matter. When we dove into this, we found out there was 0.57 officers that were patrolling the contract cities. Anyone in here can agree that's too low. what most people don't understand, which is right, is the contract cities, in our contract with them, it's a service. It's not a staffing, it's not an FTE. The contracts were done well before, and in that agreement, we will respond to calls, and whenever we have time and resources, we'll do other things. We'll do traffic and whatever else is in there, right? At one point, they wanted some more service. We offered an a la carte if they wanted to buy a dedicated FTE. So we've been addressing this matter for a bit now. Now, to the other point about the 0.57, there was a couple plans in place that the chief guard and some others installed, and this is what they were. We wanted to be able to draw a clear line as much as possible. And that clear line is saying, okay, deputy so-and-so, when you come on duty, this is where you're gonna be general fund. You're gonna be contract city. Chief Warren, we've listened, every one of the chiefs in here has given, but we've listened to it, and thank you. And so we're addressing that. So the proposal to adjust this matter without an enormous financial burden is to ask for 10 deputies. We feel, based on if the contracts don't change, we feel that's adequate support. Also, it'll be from 0.57 to 0.72, and at that time, we want to assess that number for the contract cities. It may go up even more, it may stay the same, it may come down. We don't know, because during that time, we're gonna be gathering data. Now, to address the big picture, I've heard for years that there's subsidizing or allocation or whatever. But when you don't have the staff, and when you are so cut so low, everybody's switching everybody's hat. If we all had hats on in this room, we'd be borrowing and sharing and swapping. That's just how it is. It's been bad. But I will tell you this, that I really appreciate what the commissioners did with the pay study and the implementation. We are fully staffed. Give or take one or two, depending on where they are on paperwork. We're seeing some really good increases. Now, when it comes to the general fund, I can tell you what we used to do. So when we hear things like within the general fund, that we are always helping the contract cities, so we weren't doing our responsibilities, and so that should be reallocated or shifted. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt any of that. But let me tell you what we should be doing as your sheriff and as general fund that we're not doing. We don't have the proper recreation deputies. We don't have the proper amount of patrol. We do not have enough ICAC, internet crimes against children. We have one person in 1 month, about a year ago, he had 400 referrals of child porn sexual activity. Guess how many he handles? Less than 100. He had to take the worst of the worst. The county, now look, there are some agencies that participate with the detective part-time. We've explained this to commission, and most contract cities know that we're dedicated for that service. We should have 3 or 4. I'm so scared to death when the mom calls in and says, why aren't you protecting my daughter? It's been reported to you. I don't have staff. That's a general fund obligation and responsibility. We should be the biggest, baddest son of a bitch in the county that kicks ass in ICAC. We're not. I'm not blaming the commission on that at all. I'm just saying staffing. So when we want to take 32 and reduce it further, that's hard. That's hard to digest. Warrants. We have over 24,000 warrants in Weaver County that have been out by judges. Guess how many of those warrants are being pursued by law enforcement in Weaver County? 0. We only do it when all of our deputies and officers are out running around and we run into somebody. Weaver County, about 15 years ago, had a really robust team that I think they had 2 or 4 that were out there just chasing warrants. That's what general fund should be doing. ICE. Right now, I'm getting hit hard with ICE. A year ago, I didn't need anybody working with ICE. We should have at least 1. I would love to have 2 embedded with ICE. I do not want Minneapolis happening here. If anybody wants to know what happened in Minneapolis, it's simple. The local police and the state and county officials gave the feds the middle finger and said, we are not helping you.
So ICE influx hundreds of staff to protect their own. That's what happened. This is why I'm so, right now, ICE is on a general fund. I hope it's temporary. Maybe in a couple of years, we don't need it. I need help with ICE. Okay. The other thing is the marshals. Most of you, we used to have someone dedicated to the marshals. We don't. It's a rare occasion. Marshals are going after the fugitives. When we work together with other agencies, I know when we work with Matt, I know when we work with Casey, Darren, and Stetson, looking for any other chiefs in here, we get stuff done because we collaborate and work together. We need to be doing that with the feds. ATAC, it's the Area Tactical Analysis Center. When I first got in here, that's a rich, wonderful resource. Chief Watt at the time asked me if I would contribute a deputy, and we did, and we're seeing high success. That may be one of the positions that I will have to remove if we go down to a lower level. That benefits everybody in this room. Training, sex offender checks. We don't do checks because we don't have the staff for it. If you guys knew how many sex offenders we have in the community, it's pretty bad, but we don't have checks. We rely on them to come to our office, in your office, but we're not out checking them. The list can go on and on and on. Our federal partners, FBI, ICE, Marshals, Forest Service, DEA, all the state, local. This is why, so when I asked about this 32, again, that report is really about a hunch and opinion. I proposed to the county, if you want a copy of this, but we solicited a robust way to document and to track our staff so we can gather the data. What's in that report or what's not in that report is data. I was told, Summer, I think it was you that sent a letter requesting a third-party something to do an audit of some sort.
Audit, yeah,
Yeah, so we haven't done that. I don't, those are costly. But I think that we can do it from day one. We can start out, and then when it comes to making that decision, and I mentioned this to the commissioners yesterday, if the audit based on the data says that we need 20, 9, 1, we get it, we'll accept it. But right now, taking away positions from audit is just, it's not good practice. We're making a decision on hunches and opinion, and I think that's not right. And that's what I have to say. I can answer a bunch of other questions on this about what we do, but we want to stay at 32. We want to grow the contract cities. You guys deserve more manpower, and you ask for it, you got it, we're gonna get it. But let's not take away general fund because of the value they are. And some of you have not been seeing some of the general fund responsibilities. It's because we haven't been able to have the staff to provide it. Questions?
Okay, so we're clear. You didn't have any input on the audit that,
So
this draft or whatever.
So
how much did you have, I should say?
So technically, we talked about committees and groups. I'm the one that asked for the audit back in August. And Kaylee, she's newer, she's great. She does really good work. And she was busy, so she got around to it in working with her. She came out and did a ride along, got to see the scope and the size of the county. And we gave her some data, but what she does not have is call data. She doesn't have allocation data in the sense of where our staff are going. That's what we believe needs to be made in this report or this audit to justify a change in any direction. Sitting with my staff, Mayor, the lieutenants that have been at the sheriff's office, they're saying 41 to 48 is what we need to do our obligation on there. I said, no, we're at 32. We need to do an audit. Let's start there and move forward. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, other questions?
You know, just, maybe I just missed it. Initially, it sounded like we weren't gonna make any movement right now. They're gonna stay at the 32. Now I'm hearing, are we shifting down to 28?
Yeah, the decision's been made. We're going to 28.
And you guys make that?
Correct.
I got a question. So it sounds like 28's not gonna get him what he needs though. Like, we're not gonna have the ICAC people. We're not gonna have the warrant people. Like, as a resident of Weber County, how does that benefit me? Not as a mayor, but as a guy living in Riverdale that wants the ICAC going, I want the warrants being served. When I get police reports, every time I read through them, yeah, this guy had, I mean, they pick someone from the street, oh yeah, that's outstanding warrant, always an outstanding warrant. I ask, gee, are they not arresting anybody in this city, in this county? Are we not putting them in jail? Do we not have the right judges? Why do these guys say, oh, we pulled over, there's a homeless guy standing there, we asked him, and he took off running because he's got warrants? Like, why aren't we getting the sheriff what he needs? Why are we cutting down from 32? I don't even understand what we're doing now. Like,
Yeah, I
Why-
don't, that doesn't,
why are we
that-
cutting
this doesn't-
down?
this doesn't sound right, Commissioner. I mean, if we need money for the contract cities, I think that's where the money should come from, and leave it at 32 till, I mean, all these things that we're not getting, I wanna have some of those things. I think by cutting it, that's a shame on us for doing that. It just seems like it's too, I don't know, but I haven't, I'm coming in the middle of all this. You've been fighting it for a year, but it just doesn't seem right to just cut that.
I'm
Well,
sure you guys have a big job. We don't see it all.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have to allocate funds for everything. You know, there's stuff pulling you guys every which way. I
Is
don't
it
know what
the
those
budget
are,
thing?
but when it comes to the sheriff,
Shortfall?
this is so critical. It should be public safety is our number one. If we gotta cut out a park or we gotta do something different, I'm hope we're looking at that and going, it can't happen. We can't fund the ice sheet. We can't fund something else. We can't go down on safety, our main thing.
First off, let me be clear on that too, because I do wanna, all of our facilities in the county, the ice sheet, the shooting complex, the Golden Spike Arena, the Ogden Eccles Conference Center, all of those things are paid for not by property tax or general fund. Those ongoing expenses there are paid right out of tourism tax, TRT, so they're not funded. I know cities are funded differently with your parks, they're paid, we don't do that in the county. We fund those out of tourism tax. So and those monies are restricted monies. We can't take tourism tax and pay for law enforcement or things like that.
And I picked those out just randomly, just.
No,
throwing out.
but I
just
wanna
don't know
be-
what you guys.
I always like being, talking about that anyway, because it's a good way, people think that, because cities have to pay for parks, it's different with the counties.
okay, I'm gonna go to Commissioner Bowles. She's
Okay,
very
so,
much briefed on this.
yeah, Mayor, to answer your question, the 23, this is what's included in the report for the 23. So there won't be things that are necessarily eliminated. There just won't be additional that there's.
I've got the 23.
Yeah. So ICAT is at 1, stays at 1 with the 23.
So that hasn't been
Search and
deep.
rescue is that at 1? Do you have that at 1 right now?
You have it at 1 in your audit, and I want you to keep in mind, search and rescue is 365, 24 hours a day. All these police chiefs know that that's impossible with one.
Where did the 9 go? That's just just tell me where we're cutting them off.
This report is what Kaylee sat down with the sheriff and came up with. So the biggest number on here is patrol.
We're hearing, he's going, no, he didn't.
We did not do that together. That was
It's
her
on your
own.
whiteboard at your office.
That's not 23.
That's not 23. So to be clear, I have a picture of Kaylee when she did the report. She had us at 41 positions.
Including 20 patrol.
Yes, she had us at 41,
So she
and then
had,
it changed.
20 patrol, not.
Then she changed.
Patrol.
Does everybody understand what general fund does? General fund is a little bit different than your city police departments. So any Forest Service area, federal land that we respond to, that the sheriff is obligated to respond to, is covered by general fund. It's not contract. It's not anybody else. It's general fund. There is one US Forest Service officer up here for this region, which includes Idaho. The summertime, we get reimbursed for overtime. That's 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Holidays, we staff an extra shift for. So outside of that funding overtime from the Forest Service, if there's a call for service in those areas, any other day than Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, sheriff's office has to respond. Geographically, to go down below 20 patrol deputies is unsafe, irresponsible, not just for the public, but for my deputies out there driving around.
I need to correct myself. It was 38 that Kaylee wrote on my board, not
and
41.
that was with the 20 patrol.
That's 20 patrol. Yeah.
Yes, that's she.
That would take
that was
number to
hers.
18.
I say so.
Go ahead, Commissioner
Sorry.
Bowles. Go.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Yeah,
I think just sitting here and we've had conversations with Sheriff Warden before in the past, we've talked about it with some of our chiefs. The deputies that we need, the countywide deputies, the 32, is probably entirely accurate, maybe it's not even enough. The problem with it is they're not able to fulfill those obligations, the things they'd like to do with those general fund deputies. Because they're pulling those deputies to go to the contract cities, which is taken away from the rest of the county's core services that they're obligated to provide. I think as I spoke with Sheriff Warden before, I says, look, I don't have any qualms with the number you have. Heck, maybe, I wish you had more cops the merrier, in my opinion. Public safety is number one. But the problem with that is he's got obligations with the contract cities. And when they have calls for service coming in and they need backup, they gotta pull those deputies to go provide backup. They gotta pull those deputies to maybe work ICAC cases there because there isn't a dedicated ICAC person for that city, whereas the other ones do, where he could have 2 or 3 tackling the whole problem countywide. So it's not so much, we're shifting deputies back and forth. The real question really should be is we just need to add deputies, period. And a lot of that burden, unfortunately, is probably gonna fall, to keep the 32 with the county, is gonna fall in contract cities. Now, it's not real popular. I'm a resident of West Haven, my neighbors probably hate me, but I've always said from day one, we need more officers out there. Public safety is my number one priority for my family, the people that I work with. And so I think we're kind of getting in potato, when the essence of the problem is we need a pumpkin. We need something else. And so that's my thoughts.
no, so we're running out of time here. I know we've got some other meetings coming up. So I think the discussion's been relevant. I think we understand that some of these issues we can deal with. This is the reallocation simply on the general fund now. Some of the comments from the sheriff in terms of those positions, and I've told him this before, needs to be addressed when we talk about his budget come November, October, November, which may necessitate a tax increase. But that has very little to do or nothing to do with this allocation right now with contract cities. If we need to add more people, if we need more deputies, which I don't disagree with, that's part of his overall budget when he comes to us in October, November, and then we'll have to decide at that point in time, is it worthy going back to the public and saying we have a tax increase because of this? But at the end of the day, our client is the taxpayer. And that's what we're looking at right now, is who should pay for these. And this will be a discussion that continues through October,
Can I
November.
have just one quick clarification? Who sets the contract price? Is that the commissioner or is that the sheriff?
We do, we have.
Sheriff.
You set the contract price to the contract cities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, then you should be setting that, and you'll have to have a raise to cover that, right?
I would love to see it work that way. There are several intricate parts of the clerk auditor's office that's involved. There's a formula. And within the contract city, you're not just getting a deputy, you also get a sliver of a supervisor, you get a sliver of human resources and so forth.
And is that not, I mean, what these guys said to begin with, it's not fair for us to pay for that. The contract cities need to pay that, so.
We asked for 10, we're gonna get 10. And so to your point, yes, I've also asked to maintain 32. And what I'm hearing is I don't get the 32 anymore.
But they're shifting those to the contract cities, right? Those others.
So they're shifting positions, but I still have responsibilities that I can't fully meet as a sheriff should do.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Bowles, anything else?
Okay, I just went through the picture that we took of your whiteboard. So these are when you asked about reductions. One of the reductions in numbers is strike force, going from 2 to 1. And that number was the same for the sheriff and Kaylee. A reduction in gangs from 2 to 1, that was sheriff and Kaylee. A reduction of 2 traffic deputies. Well, yeah. Traffic deputies are not listed on that report. So a reduction of 2. It also included civil staff, 1.5, which is not even part of the sworn deputy conversation. So civil staff is not included in the report. And then there's no ICE included in the report or marshals, which the sheriff has asked for specific deputies assigned to those. And then patrol in the report, it's listed at 13. And I think in our first conversation last June, we were at 12 patrol. And that's where the big conversation happened with the cities that have their police departments who's in patrol. So that's where the
So,
reduction.
question, who are the cities that complained about the 32? Any others?
At the time last year, it was North Ogden.
North Ogden.
Yeah.
North Ogden. Yeah. South Ogden.
What was that question?
What was
the
what,
question,
what
Sheriff?
was this, what cities complained
Oh,
about the general fund 32? So to your point, you were saying, or somebody was talking, it's like, okay, so they're busy with the contract cities. So the 32, we can't, your general fund deputies are now being used to us. Sounds like the general fund deputies need to go up. We have a contract with that gentleman right there, and we require him to fulfill it. If he has to put those resources to, shouldn't the general fund come up? We're worried about the general fund deputies now being pushed to us. Well, we pay for them. So if we need more for the general fund, does that go up? Does that make sense? We're talking 32, maybe you need 36.
We may. That's why we're asking for additional information. Yeah.
And that's why we've asked the sheriff, and he did come in our last budget and ask for an additional ICAC. That was the one additional request. And the commissioners did not put that in our budget. We left it at 1 because we were in the middle of the compensation study. We wanted to get that, unrolled, and then he'll come back and ask for that again. That's something that I fully support. And to Chief Warren's point, if we're gonna add additional ICAC, that's one reason why that would not go down for your residents. Because we would be adding ICE, marshals, whatever else the sheriff has requested.
So I got it. Why would we we need more information, obviously, everybody agrees. Why would we change his right now? Why don't we're at where we're at, what's the necessity to drop those?
Yeah, leave it where it's at and then get more.
We don't have the information, it sounds like. I think you folks agree too. We don't have it. Maybe it's down to 25, maybe it's up to 37.
Well, I would say this, and I disagree with what the sheriff said. I think we have enough information on this report to justify 23. I think that we've looked at, okay, what's the best scenario for the contract cities and the non-contract cities that's equitable for both. And that's why we arrived at the 28. And that's why we arrived at, let's use the school resource officers to basically hold the contract cities as harmless as possible. So what I would suggest you do is look at the report. I've always said, I think Matthew would agree with this. When people complain about a particular bill, have you read the bill? So I would say when this becomes public, look at the information and then tell us at that point in time what your opinion is. But I think that you have non-contract cities that would say we should probably go to 23. And we're trying to actually look at something that's equitable for both contract cities and non-contract cities. So that's all I'd ask you to do. All right, I think we're used up our time. Anything else?
I don't have anything. I can see why there's a concern.
Yeah.
I have enough confidence in the work that Katie did.
Yeah.
With the sheriff's office, with the internal audit, to have made the decision and not go to 23, but to go to 28. I think it's a moving target, and I think you could see some adjustments after that. But I also think if you're, what's been said is if we're going to 0.72, sounds to me like we don't just need to increase 10 deputies. Probably if you're gonna only get 0.2 out of 10 deputies, you probably should increase 30 more. So you really should go to 40. And are the contract cities willing to fund the 10 deputies today and 30 more tomorrow?
Well, that can be a threat. I mean,
That's not a threat.
It's crushing us.
Yeah,
The
I know
cost is
that.
crushing.
So we're trying to do
We
this.
could back out too and say, we're not doing the sheriff, and we still have to have that service in our city.
I'm not trying to threaten you. I'm just saying, based on what we've heard, that's why for me, we'll take a phased approach with this. You have to do it in steps. You can't take it all in one lump.
We looked at the increases the sheriff proposed the last time we met. It's another 5% each year. After our 21%, as contract city, we're taking 5% each year. So we know that. But it's tough, and Jim, I appreciate, or Commissioner Harvey, I appreciate it. Yeah, we can get emotional, but we can all work it out and figure out what's best, but I think the biggest thing is, I've been a contractor all my life. I got a problem with electrical situations. You don't take me and the two other owners and put us in a room and try to figure it out. Take the guys that know what's going on, bring them in, and you guys beat each other up until you can come up with something you're both mad about, but you agree on it. That seems like the best thing to do, but I just sounds like he wasn't involved in this, and that bothers me. That's all. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bowles?
Only that the sheriff was involved
Yeah.
in I mean,
Yeah.
Haley spent all the time with you. I
Yeah.
don't believe she spent any time with any of the commissioners.
No.
I haven't.
It was your office that she spent.
And I want to be, make this is not a decision that's been made overnight. There's been numerous meetings since June of 2025, discussions, analysts, talking to our auditors, looking at looking at what the sheriff's department's done, what their forecasts are, what their budget requests are, will be. So I don't want anybody to walk out of here thinking that the commission sat down one afternoon and made this decision. There's a lot of information. When we hire an internal auditor, I respect the information that auditor brings out. I think that if I look at it from a non-contract city, and we didn't recognize the validity of what we saw in that report, that would be a disservice to the non-contract cities, to the taxpayers. We just want the taxpayers to pay for the services they receive. Bottom line. I think we'll get there. Okay, thank you very much for being here. We're gonna adjourn this meeting.
Oh, you do need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry, we're in a session.
So moved.
I got carried away there. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned now.